Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sandra Scholl, and I'm the chair of the Toronto Preservation Board. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to now call meeting 16 to order. Welcome, everybody. And this is a reminder that this meeting is being recorded, and it's also being viewed over YouTube. So please, I'm going to remind you right now, before I get to that part of the script, please keep your mics muted so that observers can hear everybody clearly. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology with members and staff connecting by video conference or calling in. Because we are meeting remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube, as I said. We currently have speakers who have been connected to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto Preservation Board page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. I would like to request that staff keep their video turned off unless they need to speak or answer questions. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate on each item and during votes. We have a lot of participants today. If there are any visiting members of council attending the meeting today, I would like to encourage you to turn on your video so that I know you are present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or speak. This will also assist the clerk staff in recording member attendance for the minutes of the meeting. I also ask that all members and staff, as I asked before, keep their microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question or speak. If any members do wish to speak on an item, please make sure your video is on. I'm not seeing everyone right now, as a matter of fact. Raise your hand, so that I see a flurry on my screen, or unmute your mic and indicate your intention to speak, and I will create a speakers list if there's several people who put up their hands or wish to speak at the same time. When voting, I ask that members make sure that your video is turned on and raise your hands to indicate your vote. Members, I want to remind you that although members are participating remotely, you must still submit any motions in writing to the clerk. If we want to amend something, if we want to add something, you have to submit that in writing to the clerk. The clerk staff are available by email, and the email address is teycc@toronto.ca to help you write the motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the board would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and Wendat, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict or Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. We're all good? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed. Next, we need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on July 2nd. Who will move this? Barbara? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. So, breaking from precedent today, before we proceed with the agenda review, I would like to propose that we consider the first item, PB 16.1, a tribute to Kathryn Anderson, 30 years of service conserving Toronto's heritage. and then proceed to the agenda review once the item has been heard. I will move and ask someone to receive the report for information after Tamara's presentation. This is a very unprecedented and special item. We are a small heritage community in Toronto, and Kathryn played. So Tamara, without any ado, would you please go ahead?
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity and joining me to celebrate the life of our heritage planning colleague and dear friend, Kathryn, who passed away on August the 4th. I'm seeing a different video, so I guess am I clear? Thank you.
You're clear, but you're not screen sharing.
My screen, I need the presentation, not me.
Yasmina, are you sharing the presentation?
Hi, this is Noam from the clerk's office. Sorry about that. Yasmina has been granted presenter privileges now.
Thank you.
Shall I proceed or wait for the material to be displayed? I see it now. So I'll proceed. Good morning, everyone. Chair and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity and joining me to celebrate the life of our heritage planning colleague and dear friend, Kathryn, who passed away on August the 4th. And considering this 10-minute tribute, I looked through notes and seeing what's the best way to write a tribute speech. It said, talk about the person's characteristics, her person's accomplishments, person's lasting impact, and your experience with the person. I think that's all true. What's also, I think, is very important for us is to understand truly how she was an incredibly important person for us in the city planning and city government. Moving ahead on the slide, we will, Yasmina, can you move ahead on the slide? I just wanted the first headshot slide, sorry. Too bad I can't share the content myself. The first slide of her with a headshot, not this one, thank you. Is it possible that I could get the content shared to me, or?
Tamara, I
could
see the slide. I could see the slide that you wanted, Tamara.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's perfect. Just where you are is exactly where I need to be. Thank you. I guess there's just a delay, so from what's on YouTube and what's here. So I have a headshot with Kathryn Anderson, Heritage Planner, who joined the Toronto Historical Board in 1989. And throughout her 30 years of public service, she undertook research and evaluation of nearly 2,000 properties and produced reports for Toronto City Council recommending the inclusion and the city's heritage register and designation. Kathryn was a quintessential public servant. Her public service illustrates her sacrifice, her service, and a life with purpose. We advance to the next slide. It would help with her highlighted on the staircase. Thank you. Kathryn's career began when she served first in the summer student assisting in the Newmarket LACAC. Just to say that Kathryn grew up in Newmarket and spent her life in Newmarket. In those early heady days of being a summer student, don't we all remember those? She was later appointed by the town LACAC and became early in her career and throughout her career a key witness at the Conservation Review Board. In this case, she started off her career defending the town's designation of St. Paul's Anglican Church, which was opposed by the Diocese of Toronto. The CRB ruled in favor of municipal designation. She proceeded to also have a career in two other municipalities, the town of Aurora and then the town of Vaughan. What I wanted to highlight in this staircase view was of her way at the back, up there with me at the top of the stairs. Kathryn never sought the limelight, except for when drilled at PPB for some of her reports, to which I think she was always had the right information available. But as a member of the Heritage Planning team, Kathryn's sound judgment and long experience in all matters related to heritage provided reliable guidance and direction, not only to council, but most importantly to her colleagues. No matter how pressed she might be to work with her own deadlines, Kathryn was always supportive of her colleagues, guiding those new to the work and providing assistance. I was curious to learn that she actually had a degree in adult education, to which I think she subtly used at all times in educating certainly myself and our colleagues. Generous in spirit, Kathryn has made a fundamental contribution in building a strong team of heritage professionals and share the benefit of her passion for heritage. Next slide, please. "30 years is a remarkable career. Her extensive career began in 1989, joining the Toronto Historical Board as a preservation officer. We had the good fortune of hearing about her first day in the job with her hiring manager, Bill Greer, who I understand is watching today. She started on August the 21st, located at the Stanley Barracks, the Toronto THB offices. It turned out it coincided with the opening day of the CNE. She thought she had landed the dream job, welcoming colleagues and lunch at the food hall. I also wonder if she went to a Blue Jays game because it was the last season at the grandstand at the exhibition grounds. Following amalgamation, she proceeded with the heritage planning portfolio and moved to city planning. And her position at that point was changed from preservation officer to heritage planner. I think we all just said, is Kathryn around? Didn't need to have a title. What I thought was most important for us to understand is, for you to understand, she was a constant innovator and the keeper of our corporate knowledge. She always ensured our records were available no matter where our offices were. And in the last few years, we've had a few. She, unlike some of us until recently, was an early adopter of having an iPad to use it to do her research at the city archives. And my only regret on this slide, these are the offices that she worked in that we moved around. My only regret was I probably should have included a picture of the city archives building. Next slide, please. In addition to all the offices that she went to or worked out of, I think what was her other second home was all her site visits. Camera in hand, smart outfit. You can see her at the McLean House and inside the Neelan House on King Street East. That was her final report that she wrote. Ironically, it was also one of her earliest reports. She wrote the original designation of 1991 and amended the bylaw in her final report. I remember a wonderful site visit we did last September at the Lenwell House, E.J. Lennox home across from Casa Loma. Next slide, please. What you can see in this map that we produced as part of a nomination for her is the body of her work that has quietly made a profound impact on City Council's effort for the protection of many properties that contribute to the history, culture, and sense of place of Toronto. Her contribution was not only substantial to Toronto, but I would say as to the heritage profession and to heritage conservation in Ontario. And since announcing her death to the network of heritage planners, I've had many who've written to say how that she would always respond to their requests and help them learn how to do designation. So her network and her influence extended broadly. This was a chance for us, and I just say this as an anecdote. I once said to her, I know you're going to retire. So when you want to retire, just tell me which building is a priority for you to protect. And ironically, she said to me, Tamara, I've done quite a few, so it's okay. I don't need to choose which one I want to do. I think I've covered them all, be it that it had. I was very pleased that our last one is an uncontested designation, which is the Nealon House itself, as previously mentioned. What you'll see on this map is a selection of images of her favorite, some of her favorite properties, but I just also wanted to say the depth and breadth. There is no particular architectural style, a high range, broad range of the types of buildings that she did. She did quite important work, I think, also about comparative studies, be it civic centers, architectural styles itself. And she also, earlier in her career, really contributed to the creation of several heritage conservation districts, notably Draper Street. If we can move on to the next slide, please. What I think is also really important to understand is the reports that she prepared constitute an important publicly accessible record of Toronto's history. So young researchers or those who are advocates or volunteers can call upon them. I have to say that this is one of our interests and intentions to maybe do is to better understand how could we display these, because at right now they are only searched under TIMIS for those that are council decisions rather than a public record. And this, I think, is most important for us as we expand and understand our Toronto Heritage Survey, how this body of work of these extensive reports could actually be consolidated or collected according to type, or perhaps even by planner themselves in their records. So what the map actually showed was, I think, a collection of what was protected. It doesn't represent the iceberg or the body of work or sites that she went to. One of the things that we know that was a body of work was also her extensive efforts to digitize and archive the collection of 30,000 photos and slides of heritage properties pre-amalgamation from the various municipalities. And that, I think, is also something that we see as part of her record itself. I just moved back one slide. Yasmina, you want a little further ahead for me? Thank you. Move back one. Thank you. I wanted to say that through some subtle probing, we did find out two of her favorite buildings that she greatly enjoyed. And so I asked that when you walk through Commerce Court in particular, that was one of her favorites. And I think she always liked the Canada Life, as we all do, because of the weather tower. Moving along to the next slide. What I've really noticed in the 5+ years that I had the privilege of being her manager and collaborating with her was the quiet, remarkable work that she did over the decades of preserving the heritage along Toronto's waterfront. As we see right now, the adaptive rehabilitation of the Canada malting silos, but we also laying the groundwork for the incredible work that will happen on Villiers Island and to the east. And most recently, the work that she was received Award of Merit of our work on the cultural heritage landscape study, not only of the exhibition place, but its relationship to Ontario Place, but the collection of Gwynlock buildings at Exhibition Place. And finally, there's the effort of protecting several provincial properties that were transferred out of provincial control, including the LCBO headquarters. Next slide, please. What I wanted to demonstrate or explain on this slide in particular was and I'm not sure why it's gone a little funny like that, but that's okay, was that her incredible work around defending her reports at the Conservation Review Board. I had the great privilege of being in the hearing for the Morrow House, the most recent case, and the decision had remarkable comments about her. But I think that you will see in one of the letters there was in cross-examination. She was asked if she knew Inigo Jones, the architect, and she said yes, but not personally. If anyone knows that his era of influence was a little bit earlier than these decades. Moving along. Next slide, please. So what I discovered in reflecting and celebrating her 30th anniversary of starting at the City of Toronto, what was her first assignment? And her first assignment was a Hart House. Her final assignment, as I previously mentioned, was a Neelan House, which is going to go through an extensive restoration and conversion to a hotel. And I'm very pleased that both of these sites couldn't have been a better bookend to a long and incredible career. You can move on, please. Next slide, please. So what does a researcher leave behind? Not only a body of work, but an incredible reference collection. This is just a few of her on the left, just a fun photo stacking the many books that she has now donated to our heritage planning library. But she was the custodian of our library. She was the keeper. She kept the catalog, always checking and making sure, exacting that we had records that we would need for our reference collection. I would also say that she left an incredible legacy of researchers that continue her work and mentoring them. Many of them you'll start to see their reports coming forward or already have in the last few years of assistant planners progressing to heritage planners themselves. If we can move to the last slide. So I always have this question, people say, or comment, people say, don't ever put a thank you slide at your end of your presentation. Why are you thanking a board that must actually sit there and listen to you? But I do want to thank the board for this great opportunity for presenting this tribute. Also to the colleagues that supported Kathryn in her past 7 months. And in recognition of her many accomplishments, Kathryn, we nominated her for the Canadian Association of Professional Heritage Professional Lifetime Achievement. I would, on that note, thank our Chief Planner, Greg Lintern, for championing and sponsoring our nomination, to Meritori, Councillor Wong Tam, and the many experts who provided testimonial. And finally, to Kathryn, unwavering in her professionalism, her work ethic, compassion, and most importantly, which you in your reading your reports might not always get, her dry sense of humor was highly treasured and respected by our colleagues. In closing, Kathryn's work has been very foundation of heritage conservation and planning in Toronto for the past 30 years. And thank you for her immense knowledge of our city's built heritage, consistently providing high standard of reports to Toronto Preservation Board, while quietly and steady professional has set a standard in her field in Toronto, Ontario, and the rest of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Tamara. That was just great. She will be an inspiration throughout this very long upcoming meeting. Are there any comments that any people want to make before I move that we receive this report? I know some of you have written. Okay, I'd like to move to receive this report for information. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you very, very much. Okay, now we move on to the rest. So going through the agenda, the second item is PB 16.2, presentation of approved interpretation plan 774-776 Yonge Street, Ward 11. I have to hold this down because we have speakers. After that, it's PB 16.3, alterations to a designated heritage property in the Union Station Heritage Conservation District under Parts 4 and 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, an authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 1 Front Street West, Ward 10. We have speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it down. The next item is PB 16.4. Amendment of designating bylaw to correct the legal description of 90 Croatia Street, which is also 980 Dufferin Street in Ward 9. There is a staff report with recommendations. Yeah, Paul? Yes.
I'd like to move it. Move adoption.
Can I see those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Nope, so that's carried. We'll just make sure. Then the next is PB 16.5, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register and intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 100 College Street. We have a speaker registered, so I will hold it down. 16.6, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, an intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. 661, 665 Huron Street, Ward 11. There is a staff report with recommendations. Would anyone like to hold this item? Okay. Can I move, or will somebody please move this item?
I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Next item is 16.7, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There has to be a way to abbreviate this. Alterations to a heritage property and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement for 3 Mutual Street, 98, 100, 102, and 104 Queen Street East, Ward 13. We have speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it down. After that, the next item is PB 16.8, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to heritage properties and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, 176 to 178 Front Street East and 33 Sherbourne Street, Ward 13. We have speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it down. The next item is 16.9, Intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to designated heritage properties and authority to enter into heritage easements agreements. 117 St. George Street, Ward 11. We have speakers registered, so I have to hold it down. Then PB 16.10, demolition of a property designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, 38 Camden Street, Ward 10. There's a staff report with recommendations. Would anyone hold this item? If so, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. Okay, I'm just double checking. I thought we had a speaker, but I'm just double checking. No, we did not. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And finally, PB 16.11 preservation panel minutes. This is, will somebody move to receive the information? Jeff, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so let's head back to 16.2, please. This is the presentation of approved interpretation plan for 774, 776 Yonge Street. And we have two speakers from Lord's Cultural Resources. And you have 5 minutes to speak, and we're not kidding, it's a long meeting. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
This is Nahom from the clerk's office. Art Phillips, you have been granted audio privileges.
I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Hi, Sandra.
Can you just speak up a bit, Art?
Sandra, can you hear me better now?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Art Phillips. Okay, thank you. Art Phillips, our first speaker, has been granted audio. He should connect his mic to be able to speak. Oh, my apologies, Sophia Souza.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm also on the call with my colleague Yvonne. Yvonne, can you try speaking?
Hi, can you hear me?
If you can speak
Yes.
up a tiny bit, but it's pretty
Perfect.
good.
Okay, great.
Shoot.
So if somebody could put our presentation up, and Erin, were you introducing us today?
Hi, Erin Smith here. I did have a staff presentation to accompany it. I could start with that if that would be preferred.
Fine.
So good morning. Hopefully you all can hear me and see me here. My name's Erin Smith, and I'm an assistant planner here in Heritage Planning. This is an information item, as mentioned, presenting the approved interpretation plan for the property at 774 to 776 Yonge Street. Next slide, please. So the properties are part of a larger redevelopment site that's known as One BLOOR. It's located on the southwest corner of BLOOR and Yonge Street in downtown. This is a map showing the site. Next slide, please. Here's a photo of the site for reference. This is from 2014. The William Luke buildings, or 774 to 776 Yonge, are in the center there, and this is taken prior to construction happening around those. Next slide. For background, City Council approved a development for this site in 2016, which comprises an 80-story building at the corner of BLOOR and Yonge, and a building located just south of those William Luke buildings at 774 to 776. And that building transitions in height to the surrounding streetscape. Next slide. This is a close-up of the elevation of that development. So the William Luke buildings are being conserved, and they have been protected through designation as well as a heritage easement agreement. Heritage Planning has worked with the applicant and other city departments to refine the site plan at this stage. And as of now, we have secured the Heritage Easement Agreement, Conservation Plan, Lighting Plan, a letter of credit, as well as the interpretation plan. Next slide. The applicant is nearing final site plan approval, and the recommendations of the approval of the redevelopment included conditions that were added by the Toronto Preservation Board that the owner work with the representatives from the local heritage community on an interpretation plan for the site, and that they present the approved plan to the board prior to site plan approval for information. As per these recommendations, the approved interpretation plan interprets the cultural heritage value of the William Luke buildings, as well as commemorates the former His Majesty's Theatre building located at 780 Yonge Street. And these are in publicly accessible areas of the development. The owner's heritage consultant will now present the approved interpretation plan for information. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Erin. So we will have the presentation from Lords, and then we can ask them questions. Then they will disappear, and we will ask staff any questions we may have. But it's basically to be received for information. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Erin, for the introduction. So this is, as Erin mentioned, the 774 to 776 Heritage Interpretive Plan. Next slide, please. So we really believe that successful heritage interpretation of the site is achieving these three intended goals. We think it's important to look at the interpretation holistically for the whole experience, even if the heritage interpretive elements are not experienced as a whole by visitors to the site itself. Next slide, please. So we've identified these three target audiences. Identifying these audiences for any experience informs how it's conceived of and designed in order to best meet the needs of that audience. As the interpretive elements are intended for the general public, the audience for the interpretation has been segmented into the following three categories based on how people will use the site rather than specific audience demographics. These audience segments will inform how the interpretation for the site was developed. Next slide, please. So there's three opportunities and considerations that we took as part of this heritage interpretation plan. The development of the site at the intersection of two of Toronto's oldest and most prominent streets, the enduring iconic presence of that intersection in the story of Toronto, ample exposure to constant footfall due to its location at the junction of these streets in the main downtown thoroughfare. The corner provides a wrapping effect for the public sidewalk, which extends the opportunity to engage with passerby and build connections. And of course, the purpose of this presentation, again, focusing on 774 and 776, but really looking at the history of the site and the built heritage, as well as its historic significance. Our considerations really look at all interpretation needing to be publicly accessible, both physically and intellectually, and should assume little prior knowledge of any history on the site. The design must be durable to withstand seasonal elements in use. The interpretive experiences we think should be self-directed and low maintenance in terms of operations and resources. And again, the interpretation and design protects the heritage value and attributes of the 774-776 location. It's important to note that building excavations did not find any archaeological artifacts, nor any remaining architectural materials, elements, or features from the buildings that previously occupied the site for use. And also noting back to my previous slide about audience, we thought it was important to catch the attention of and build meaningful engagement with visitors who have alternative motivations for being on site and or within their regular commute pattern and schedule. Next slide, please. The thematic concept is a roadmap for design and not intended as a physical organization. Sophia will present those on subsequent slides. But we look at this in terms of understanding and organizing interpretation and storylines for the one. And we've done that in 4 different four main themes: journey, craftsmanship, culture, and landscape, and a linking theme of Indigenous presence and heritage. These all combine to tell the story of this place and recognize it as a place of significance. The four main themes, outlined in more detail in a moment, will help to tell the story of the site as a destination. So the first one is journey, and we know this because we think of this because Yonge is one of the first built roads in the town of York and was an area through which Indigenous people migrated. Craftsmanship includes consideration of the site as a high-quality retail establishment in the past and today, a place for handcrafted goods, architectural significant buildings as well. Culture, we understand that there was the Santa Hill burial site and was a film theater from 1914 to 1916, and later a ballet studio and a drama school. The landscape story is really representing that it was a key location in natural and urban landscape and in the development of our city. And as I mentioned before, permeating all themes is the linking theme of Indigenous presence and heritage. As articulated by stakeholders during the consultation process, the Indigenous content we felt should be interwoven throughout the interpretation and presented in thoughtful, creative, and contemporary ways. Next slide, please, and I'll pass it on to Sophia.
So the interpretive elements are the physical and digital methods of display on the site. Each interpretive element connects to at least one of the four themes as mentioned by Yvonne, so journey, craftsmanship, culture, and landscape. There are 7 interpretive elements located throughout the site, 2 of which directly interpret the William Luke buildings at 774, 776 Yonge. Just a note that the interpretive titles are only titles. They're not indicative of the content or the design. And the interpretive elements also take into consideration how the audience will perceive and interpret the elements. Next slide, please. So the first interpretive element is finding your way at Yonge and Bloor. This interpretive element is a story of movement, urban evolution, and heritage expressed through a visual timeline. So it'll be a series of bronze shoes inlaid into the paving tiles, illustrating significant moments throughout the iconic intersection. There will be 2 starting points of the timeline, one on Yonge and one on Bloor, and they will meet at the intersection of Yonge and Bloor. The next interpretive element is His Majesty's Theatre, Boris Volkoff, Dora Mavor-Moore, and the William Luke buildings. This interpretive element commemorates the former moving picture house via a plaque that recognizes the site of one of Canada's first ballet schools under the leadership of Boris Volkoff, who was known as the father of Canadian ballet. The theatre school under Dora Mavor-Moore, who was a pioneer in Canadian theatre, who helped establish the Stratford Festival. And the plaque will also commemorate the Italianate architectural significance of the William Luke buildings. It is also going to be located at the northern entrance to a new commercial establishment in the William Luke buildings. Next slide, please. The Stollery Memorial will be located on Bloor Street, and it's going to be a plaque as well. And it's going to also include corresponding floor tiles cascading, which shows some historic images of the Stolleries. And D, commemorating Toronto's heritage future. So as the one development is soon to be the largest building in Canada, it has the potential to be recognized as future heritage. So a plaque similar to that of the Stolleries and His Majesty's Theatre will commemorate the new development. Next slide, please. So the highlighting of 774 and 776 Yonge Street. So to recognize the high degree of craftsmanship of the William Luke buildings, a Heritage Toronto plaque is proposed for the Yonge Street facade, along with contemporary uplighting that will be used in a stylized way to exaggerate the Italianate architectural features. Echoes of native landscape. The intersection is unrecognizable from its original natural landscape. So bronze paving tiles will visually showcase and identify native plant species in English and Ojibwe or another relevant Indigenous language. Next slide, please. And then the last interpretive element is a reflection of historic Yonge Street. So on the southernmost portion of the site will be a pseudo-historic storefront. In the window spaces will be an archival photo from 1929, reflecting the exact streetscape that would have been opposite of the one, giving pedestrians the impression of the former historic commercial street. And then next slide. And that's our thank you slide. So thank you for listening.
You're not supposed to put in the thank you slide.
Oh.
Okay, do we have any questions of our interpreters? Nothing? Okay, thank you very, very much. That was a very clear presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff now? Okay, no questions. Then can I ask someone to move that we accept this report? Barbara, all in favor? I am seeing very few there. Okay, there's Paul. Where are the rest of you? Okay. Robert, I don't see you and I don't hear you. Okay, Robert has disappeared.
You should be seeing me.
Okay, there you are. Okay. Is there anyone opposed at this point? That might be easier. Okay, I think it's carried. Ellen, are we good? Ellen? Where is everyone? Who is there from clerks?
I'm sorry, Sandra, are you asking me if the vote is carrying? Because
yes, because what I'm having trouble. I'm now seeing more people. I am not seeing the entire board. People's audio and video were turned off. So I don't know if it carried.
well, Sandra, perhaps you could ask the members to turn their video on and
yes,
then
please. I did that. Matthew, where are you? I've lost
when the voting
Jeff.
is happening,
I'm here, so it's going to be a problem.
Okay, because I need, if you're only there with audio, I need you to speak up. Otherwise, I
should be on video, Sandra. Can you not see me?
No.
Sandra, I'm here as well, and I can see myself on the matrix, so I don't understand the issue.
I don't know. I'm getting little yellow triangles, Ellen. Do you know what that means? On some people, so they're not showing up.
Put on the grid view.
I have the grid view on.
Just a minute, Sandra. Nahom wants to give you some information, please.
Okay, please.
I apologize for interrupting, Sandra. So what's probably happening is that the audio and video is buffering on your end. So even if the members have their cameras on, the connection on your end is having trouble receiving that information. But it would appear that most, if not all, the members have their cameras on, and you're just having trouble seeing that video.
Okay, then what should I do? I am sitting right next to the modem. And it was fine until 2 minutes ago. I'm looking at my Wi-Fi connection, and it is supposedly fine. What do I do?
So, Sandra, in this situation, I would suggest turning off your camera,
Okay.
which may help with the buffering issue.
Okay.
And if you can still hear the members correctly, you may need to take a recorded vote in order to be able to, Ellen will speak to that.
Okay, so I've just turned off my video. I'm still not seeing others people video, but I think we're going to have to, I'm sorry, I think we're going to have to do recorded. I saw the whole presentation, everything was fine. I'm sorry, can I please have a recorded vote?
Could you just give me one moment, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Sandra, it's Tamara here. I often have the same issue of buffering. Did you connect your audio using your cell phone? Because that will...
No.
Okay.
Nope. It's on my laptop.
Okay.
I'm sitting with a laptop.
If I may, sorry, Tamara. Sandra, would you like to call out the names of the members and then I'll just record at this end? Is that your preference?
I guess that would be the easiest. So
okay, that's fine. Then I'll keep a record of who says yes and then who is opposed. Okay.
Okay. So Alex. In favor, Barbara?
Yes.
Good. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Councillor Layton? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Robert? Robert? Robert?
Saying yes. He's
Okay.
unmuting.
Okay. And I think that's it. Okay, so it's carried.
Sorry, Sandra, it's Matthew. I'm in favor.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I caught everybody.
And yourself, Sandra, you have to say whether you're
Yes,
in favor or
yes,
not.
yes, I'm in favor. So it's carried.
Correct.
Okay. It's funny. So you're popping on and off. It's anyways, thank you. I'm sorry about this. Our next item is PB 16.3, alterations to a designated heritage property in the Union Station Heritage Conservation District under Parts 4 and 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into heritage easement agreement at 1 Front Street West. We have on this item, and I've got two computers going to try and keep everything down, my bandwidth. So do we staff introduction, and then we will go on to our speakers.
So yes, it's Paul Macca with Heritage Planning, and I have a staff presentation.
Go ahead.
Okay. So next slide, Yasmina. And the next slide. So through you, Chair, my name is Paul Macca, and I'm the Heritage Planner assigned to the property at 1 Front Street West. I'm here this morning to give you a brief introduction on the staff report. What's before you is the location map taken from the staff report of the subject property. The subject property is located at Front Street West. It's immediately east of Union Station. It runs the full block on the south side of Front Street West between Bay Street and Yonge Street, and it contains a Dominion Public Building. Next slide, please. So on the left is an image of the Dominion Public Building as it looked shortly after its final construction. It was built as a customs house by the federal government during the Great Depression in the 1930s. It was listed by the former City of Toronto on the city's inaugural inventory of heritage properties in 1973. And it was designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act by the city after it was sold by the federal government in 2017. Now it's valued through its connection to T.W. Fuller, who served from 1927 to 1936 as the chief architect of the Federal Department of Works, which was responsible for in-house design of nearly all public architecture in Canada in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. During the Great Depression, the chief architect oversaw monumental projects in the country's major centers, including Toronto, where the Dominion Public Building remains Fuller's best known work. It's also valued as a rare and exceptional example in Canada of Beaux Art classicism. Contextually, it supports its context along with Union Station and is a landmark street. The property is located within Union Station Heritage Conservation District and is a contributing building. Heritage attributes on this property are found on the exterior and also on the interior of the building. And interior attributes include the long room, which is shown on the image at right, which is in the interior. It's where the customs wickets were. Next slide, please, Yasmina. So in the 1990s, the City of Toronto settled a site-specific appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board, now the LPAT, by the federal government, making an exception to the zoning bylaw. And this would have allowed for, or allows for, the construction of a tall building above the Dominion Public Building. These exceptions to the zoning bylaw still remain on the subject property. The current owner has applied to construct 2 tall buildings on the development site. This application of the Planning Act was refused by City Council on staff's recommendation last year, in part because it did not conserve the heritage property. At that time, Council directed staff that if the application was subsequently appealed to the LPAT, we were to attempt to use mediation, conciliation, or other dispute resolution techniques in an attempt to resolve the appeal. The application was appealed to the applicants. Since that time, staff have met with the owners of the property and we've had very productive conversations. The application that is before you is a significant improvement over the initial application, and it's a result of these discussions. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal adequately conserves the Dominion Public Building, appropriately conserves the Dominion Public Building, the adjacent heritage properties, and meets the objectives of the Union Station Heritage Conservation District Plan. And we're recommending that the proposal be approved with their standard conditions. The current proposal retains all of the walls in situ, exterior walls, with only minor alterations. This is one of the changes from the original application that was refused by council. The proposal also retains the interior long room in situ. The tall buildings above are sited in a way that provides for generous step backs from Front Street and also step backs from Yonge Street. Now, I've reproduced a couple of images from the staff report, just a few of them here. On the left is the proposed Front Street elevation. You can see the tall buildings on the left-hand side. And on the right, it's a section drawing showing the structure that will be created in order to conserve the long room in situ within the Dominion Public Building, tall building above. Next slide, please, Yasmina. Now, just a little bit of context on how we reviewed this application. One of the important considerations for staff as part of this application reviews towards the proposed development from the public realm. And this was particularly important in the context of the Union Station Heritage Conservation District. One of the key views that we looked at was the view of the proposal from in front of Union Station. So right in front of the square, in front of the station. We wanted to ensure that the tall buildings would not disrupt the Beaux-Arts street wall. In this case, tower placement and setbacks were very important. The proposal again is for the tall buildings to be stepped back from Front Street. They're stepped back a minimum of 10 meters in order to achieve this. We also looked at the step backs of the tall buildings from Yonge Street, which is important in the context of the heritage properties to the north and to the east. And finally, we looked at the proposal from the south and from the west to ensure that it also has acceptable visual impact from Yonge Street. Alternatives were considered and the application was revised based on comments that came out of these studies. Rendering that you're seeing for you is a rendering produced by the applicant. And again, it shows the development site from in front of Union Station. So this concludes my brief introductory remarks. Now, the applicant's heritage consultant is here to make a detailed presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. So we will hear from our speakers and then we will ask them questions. And after that, we can ask staff questions. So who is speaking? I have three names from ERA.
Hello, this is Noam from the clerk's office. All speakers for this item have been granted audio. The first speaker I see is Art Phillips. They've been granted audio. If they'd like to connect their mic, please. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to the next speaker, Michael McClelland.
Michael McClelland?
Hi, it's Michael. Am I on now?
Yes, and you're very clear. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Art Phillips, the representative of the owner of the property, was to speak first, but it sounds like his microphone isn't working. He was going to make introductions. He might be able to be connected at some point, but I could start the presentation. I think just to start, I would sort of say that the applicant and the staff have worked extensively together and in a very collaborative manner over several years now, and even during the time of the circumstances of COVID. And this has resulted in recommendations before you, which resolves the outstanding planning appeals before the tribunal. So just to be clear, this is an application that is at the tribunal at the present time. Can you show the next slide, please? This was an image you just saw recently. I really want to emphasize that the larger building shown on the left-hand slide is not our project. That is the project being developed just directly south of our property, and it's a large project which bridges over the tracks of Union Station. Will create a new park over top of the railway tracks, and has two towers, one on the north and one on the south sides of that site. Our building is the smaller, slimmer building, which you can see in isolation, roughly in the same location that the Daniel Libeskind L Tower is located now. Next slide, please. So again, that's the site. This image, because things are happening so quickly, this image does not show the larger scale buildings that are being built with a bridge over top of Union Station, but it does show you the immediate context of the site generally. Next slide, please. And this was it was constructed in two pieces. This is the earlier part that was constructed, the eastern part, and the arc is intentionally responding to Union Station as a larger, grander master plan. The heritage staff asked that we not respond to that arc, but actually set the building back as far as possible on the widest part of the footprint of the site. Next slide, please. And this shows us to the view from in front of Union Station, and you can see the L Tower immediately behind the property. Next slide, please. Just for information, this was the decision given to the federal government. The federal government applied for the construction of a potential large office building on top of the building, and this was approved. That's a large, massive building, and it was centered directly on the federal building. And having that as a working model to work with, we proposed to actually offset that tower so as not to respond directly to the architecture below, but actually to work with the widest footprint on the site. Next image, please. So this shows two smaller towers, more slender towers, which are both residential office. We've been required to keep office as well. So it's residential and office spaces now incorporated in two towers to the Yonge Street side of the site. Next image, please. And the building has been basically a storage building. The one public room on the whole entire interior is called the Long Room, and it's on the east end of the site. The rest of the space is simply a large storage facility called the Custom House. What we've worked with the planning department is to make minor alterations to the exterior, no alterations on the front street side, but there are 3 points of entry there. The first point on the left-hand side is a direct route through the building that would allow you to go from the front street further south, because the sidewalk is incredibly narrow at that location. You might be aware of that. And this is the idea, to create covered walkway and entry, which will allow them to access the park overbuilding of the train tracks. In the middle of the block, we're using the main entrance, which currently goes into simply areas for storage. Main entrance, we're proposing a mid-block connection, which would allow you to go right through the building, which allows for more porosity. And this was a request from the St. Lawrence neighborhood that there be more porosity in the block. Further on the east side, on the right-hand side of the slide, there is access into the Long Room, and there'll be access to the residential towers above. On the south part of the site, we're actually proposing to make some changes to the exterior, which is to drop a number of loading bays to create new openings for the creation of a retail street, which we're working on in conjunction with the neighbor to the south. So that will be a pedestrian street that will be lined with shops. Next image. So that's its previous condition. The large part of the marquee has been removed. We're planning to restore the marquee, and you can see the large dock windows, which we're proposing to lower to allow access for retail uses. But these are the scale of changes we're proposing on the exterior, very minor where possible. Next image. This is the long room, which is a fantastic room. It's never really been accessible to the public, but it's actually intact and quite a beautiful room. We're proposing that this would be part of a hotel. There will be further kind of conservation measures proposed when we understand the actual hotelier's response to the room, but it's a large, quite beautiful room, and it will remain completely intact during the construction phase. If you show the next image, that's the lobby to the long room. Next image. And this is the retention of the incredible gymnastics to retain exactly in place the long room during the period of construction, because there are towers going on top of this, and they need to have structure going through the structure, and the structure will not go through the long room. I think that might be my last slide. And I'd say that there's a favorable staff report, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any questions? Have to probably, first of all, I need, oh damn, the presentation has to stay up, right? You may have to just call out and tell me who's speaking. Any questions of
yes, please.
Michael McClellan? Yes. Who is that, Robert? Who's speaking?
It was Robert.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
He keeps turning his mic off.
I know. Why are you hitting your mic, Robert? Robert?
There he goes.
You hearing me now?
Yeah.
Could you go back to the slide which shows porosity?
Yes.
In understanding the long room and its role, its new role in the building, does it give access to the elevators that we see to the south?
No, at the moment there's no point of entry from the long room to those elevators. So what I was saying earlier, Robert, is that this area will be the hotel area. It's quite possible this could be a bar or a part of a restaurant. And because we don't have a atelier in point right now, we have to come back to you at a later date with a hotel plan. And I expect that if we want to use the long room as a restaurant, we're going to have to figure out how do you gain access to the washrooms, to the kitchen, to other parts of the hotel. But at the moment, we're simply thinking of a full restoration of this space. But we need to figure out, and the hotelier hasn't been brought onto the project at this point. But that would be our intent. So no, currently we're not making an opening to any elevators.
Nice. And the other two, let's take the middle one to begin with. There are escalators going down to the lower level.
That's right.
To the south. Yeah.
That's right. And I should explain a little bit that walking, like the major room in here is the long room. It's a really impressive room. The rest of the space is really disappointing given the grandeur of the exterior. So when you walk in those front doors, you assume you're going to see a great space. There's no great space to be seen. We're proposing that we actually create some sense of grandeur by having an open space that leads to the lower level with escalators and stairs that could give you some sense of the grandness of the building. And it also, the community at large feels this is a big building that people have walked around but never gone in. and it's a large building, so there's an interest in actually making that central connection really part of the public realm, almost the exterior public realm. So it would be open and hopefully as gracious as we can make it, and it would open down into the retail level below. There's a lot of that planning with how it interacts with the retail level and access directly from it onto the retail, or you go simply outside. And so those things I think we're also going to bring back as a more refined plan when we're able to.
And similar to the west, that connection.
Yeah, the west connection is really important because the sidewalk there is really narrow, and around Union Station, there's a real interest in making the sidewalks as large as possible because of the pedestrian flow. There's going to be more increased pedestrian flow because of the Hines development, which is directly to the south of us, which will lead to a park going over top of the train sheds. And so, not over top of the train, over top of the train tracks. And so there's going to be a real interest in making sure there's enough room for people to maneuver. So what we've attempted to do without significant alteration to the exterior of the building is to make that seem as open, as accessible as possible. I think on the south side of the building, we do actually need to enlarge an opening because there's nothing really there. So we need to create a bit of a larger opening so that we can get people through. People can think, I don't have to use the sidewalk, I can use the interior route.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just call out if you have one. I can see Elizabeth, Jeff, Kim, and Matthew at the moment. Are there any other questions? Michael McClellan? Elizabeth? Or are you just adjusting?
Here I am, so I'm unmuted now. I think you can hear me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the question that I have, it really relates to the Heritage Conservation District. And I understood that the theory behind the districts is that there would be no significant visible alteration to the building that could occur that could impact the conservation district. And so that causes me to wonder how the towers, in fact, could be located there in such a manner, because there is a visual impact. And so my question really is, could Michael explain to me how this is in accord with the concept of a conservation district?
Okay, I can talk about that. The Union Station Conservation District was done in a manner to understand the impact of new development around Union Station. And in particular, there was an interest in making sure we're preserving existing built fabric, and that we're also encouraging good new design around Union Station. And that was partly the Union Station Heritage District study came with a urban design plan at the same time, which talked about, and in the plan, we talked about the project buildings that were not significant. So there could be consideration of redevelopment of some of those. In this particular circumstance, the federal government got permission for a large tower in the middle of this building. And so there's a question about, could we ameliorate that condition? The federal government sold the building with those permissions on site. So the way we've looked at this particular site is, does it have impact on the heritage fabric of the existing building? Does it have actual impact on the structure that was there? In terms of the view, we're actually replicating the position that the L Tower has. There's already the visibility of the L Tower in this exact location. So the Union Station Heritage District plan is not maybe as prohibitive of some other plans because it saw that there'd be the potential for significant growth in the area, and that the encouragement would be that the growth would allow for greater pedestrian access through the area because of the great concern about Union Station, the massive amount of development that's going into Union Station, and the number of people who are going to be using Union Station is going to exponentially increase. And there was a need to have a plan to understand that that wouldn't lead to the demolition of significant heritage buildings, and that it would lead to improvements that would make the area more accessible for pedestrians.
If I can just have a follow-up question, but Michael, while I understand how this has evolved, I'm still not grasping how the conservation district actually protects the impingement of development on the protective value of the conservation district itself. The renderings, I do understand the rendering and the lineup with the Leapskin building. However, is it not that frequently these renderings are subtly muted so that the actual impact of the building is lessened? I mean, we've seen that over and over again. And I just, you know, again, I wonder how the accuracy of that and its juxtaposition in the conservation district. That's it.
Well, if you'd like to look at those sketches, I think one of the big issues is, in fact, the much larger development that's being proposed by Hines, which is immediately south of Union Station. And that's not before us at the present time. And so these all need to be considered in context.
One final question, but is the Hines development within the Union Station Conservation District?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Jeff?
Yes, I'm just for clarification, Michael, using the same plan here, the site porosity, there are two groupings of something there over in the southeast corner, little blocks, and then in the center towards the east. Are these, what is that? Where is the footprint of the towers exactly? Is this the footprint of the towers, or what is the footprint?
I don't think you see the footprint of the tower directly in this image. I think we have to go to the other image, which shows a site diagram. There you can see, there's the footprint of the towers. The two towers are
on the left, yes.
Yeah, so they're irregularly shaped. They have to do with limiting distances from the southern building and also deep setbacks from the northern building from Front Street. So there's quite a deep setback from Front Street. There's a setback from Yonge Street, and there's in the towers themselves. And then the idea about taking two towers is they can be thinner than the original proposal from the federal government, which was a single large office block. There's other constraints as well in relation to shadow impact on Berksey Square. All those things, there's a whole series of parameters that this consultant, this team has worked through with the planning department.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sorry?
Also, I should just add, as you can see, if you think of where the long room is, one of the towers is right over the long room. So none of its structure can go into the long room at all. So,
okay, are there any other questions? I can see. Easiest just to say, Sandra, it's so-and-so. Okay, so we have no other questions. Thank you very much, Michael.
I have a question.
Oh, wait a sec. Sorry, who?
It's Robert here.
Yes, Robert.
considering the high volume of traffic to Union Station, is there a connection from this building into Union Station?
Geez, I'm forgetting at the moment, Robert. I'm very sorry. I believe there is a connection, but there's also the proposal to the south has further connections as well. I'd have to check for sure because we've done a whole series of different transportation options. And the option preferred by the city is the option going forward. I don't have a direct answer. We're looking to see if anyone's sending me a note about that, but the whole traffic flow condition with this building's been considered in light of dealing with the Union Station issues. I'm not sure. There were some issues about the amount of was a tunnel possible, and the amount of stuff under the street made it difficult to do that. So I could find out more, but I think at the moment that's still under discussion.
It does seem to me with this level of development, there should be at least a connection. Whether it's into the building to the south and then into Union Station, I don't know whether that's the answer, but
I think there's a bridge connection for the property to the south, and I'm not sure whether the decision was 2 bridges was inappropriate. So I'm sorry, I could find out more. Oh, it just got a note saying tunnel is not possible. Let me just take a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the tunnel was not possible, and I think the decision was the bridge should come from the southern property.
And no connection from this development.
No. And that had to do with impact on Union Station, so coming a bridge above.
It seems to me that's a transportation question. I mean, we can be asking the city in the future, but I would imagine it would be linking to the south, and then you would go, because there's that curve, you can get all the way from the waterfront to Union Station by the pass system. So if this building were linked to a building that's already on the path, I would think that would solve the problem. But I mean, the planning department probably knows for sure.
I would say we followed the direction of the planning department and transportation.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Michael before we go on to our next speaker? Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Just before we carry on, I want to know if Paul accordingly has arrived. Okay, not. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go on to the next speaker and then we'll ask questions. So the next speaker, my understanding, is Cynthia McDougall from McCarthy's. Is that correct?
Excuse me, Sandra, sorry to interrupt you, but I had sent you an email. Art Phillips is now available by telephone. I didn't know if you wanted to go back to him first.
Sure, we could.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Phillips.
I apologize. I had connected via video, and for whatever reason, all of a sudden my microphone went dead, so I had to phone in. I'd just like to expand upon a bit upon what Michael has addressed. First of all, with regards to the physical connection to Union Station, Michael is quite correct. The infrastructure under the roadway prevents a full-size tunnel. There is an air shaft going under, but that's not sufficient in size, obviously. What we have done is we're working closely with our neighbor to the south, Ivanhoe Cambridge Hines, and that is why on the far west side of the development, you'll see the through connection, as Michael explained. It's for the pedestrian movement north-south because the sidewalk is insufficient in width, but it also lines up with the stairs and elevators at IC Hines future pedestrian bridge linking with Union Station. With regards to our overall development, as previously mentioned by Michael, on the lane side, we've worked very carefully again with our neighbors. We will be developing a pedestrian corridor and activity area between Bay and Yonge. Our objective on the lower level, because the lane level is one level lower than Front Street, we'll be developing that for food and beverage to bring animation to the street side, that being the lane. And then what we've also done is our objective has been from the very start of this process to ensure the protection not only of the exterior of the building, but more importantly for us is also looking at the interior, and that being the long room. Unfortunately, the federal government had made numerous changes interior-wise to the balance of the building, but they did not touch the long room. So we will be working with a hotelier, as Michael's indicated. Our objective is to have that really as a showcase within the building. And the porosity is of utmost importance to us, is that we want to be able to ensure people have the ability to go through the building, but more importantly, just to come in and experience the space. If you have been into the building and you go in the main entry, it's quite disappointing when you're confronted with staircase, the back sides of elevators, and very low ceiling heights. It has been changed by the federal government, the previous owners. One other point that I'd like to make, there was a question with regards to the renderings. The renderings are accurate, but they did not include the development to the south, which was the IC Hines project. That project itself, to give you an example, is 241 meters in height, whereas our development is 157 and 167 meters in height. We have to the east, we have the L building, which is 181 meters in height. And then to the north, we have Brookfield. The west development tower is 230 meters, and the east is 213. Overall, ours will be the shortest of all the buildings adjacent to our neighbors. But the renderings, you don't have all the renderings before you today, but the renderings have been very accurate. And I apologize for the delay in getting on.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Phillips? Okay, scream out to me or your piece. Now, I understand we have, thank you very much, Mr. Phillips. Sounds like you're done. Thank you for making it. The next speaker I have is Alexis Cohen. We're having another speaker from ERA. Is that correct?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I do not need to speak and don't have any further remarks. We registered at HPS's suggestion should we need to answer questions. Thank you, and that's the same for my colleague, Ori.
Okay, thank you so much, Alexis. So now can we go on to Cynthia McDougall?
Can folks hear me?
Yes, very clearly, Cynthia, thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm just here because, and I know people don't like lawyers, so I first of all apologize for that. But I'm the legal representative of the company. You've already heard from Michael McClellan and Art Phillips. So if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them. And I just would indicate that I understand there's been a lot of collaboration, and this will result in the resolution of outstanding planning appeals. So that's all I have to say if you have any questions. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Cynthia. Are there any questions? None? Okay, thank you very much.
All the questions of staff?
Yes, that's what's happening next. Okay, are there questions of staff?
Just a comment.
Robert, yeah.
In the package that we were sent, on page, I'm just trying to find the page now, page 39 of 49, there is a massing model that I think explains the relationship between this development and the Hines development. And anybody who knows that can vouch for the accuracy of this model.
I think that would, Paul?
That's Bob.
No, but I think Paul, this is a staff question, I think that Paul answer, is that correct?
Okay.
Yes, through you, Chair. That massing model was included specifically so you could see the relationship between the proposed building and the surrounding buildings.
Thank you. The question I want to ask is whether or not the design review panel has evaluated this and given advice on this project.
And through you, Chair, I can answer that question as well.
Yes,
no.
please.
No, unfortunately, the design review panel did not have an opportunity to review this particular application. The reason being that staff were not supportive of the original application, and we needed to take the final report to council and get a council decision on the application prior to the deadlines that are prescribed under the Planning Act. So this project did not go to the design review panel.
Surprising. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, discussion amongst us. Who wishes to speak? No one? Okay. Can I ask for someone to move the staff report? Is anyone? You will move it, Robert?
I will.
Hey, I've actually put your names down in a list so it's faster because I can see some of you and not others. So please tell me your positions as I call your name. I am in favor. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Obviously you're moving it.
In favor.
Okay. Councillor Layton?
In favor.
Okay. Matthew?
In favor.
Paul Fairley?
In favor.
Alex?
In favor.
And is Paul McCording me on yet? Doesn't appear to be. Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that it's yet again complicated. Okay, and so the next one was carried. That was 16 Croatia Street. So now we move to 16.5, which is 100 College Street. Which staff member is presenting? Mary Beth? I saw you flash by.
Yes, Mary Beth is presenting.
Okay,
Yep,
there you
good.
are. Hi.
Good morning. Thanks, Yasmina. So we could go to the first slide. And the next one, please. Good morning. My name is Mary Beth McTague and I'm a heritage planner. I'm here to present the report in item 16.5, which recommends that City Council state its intention to include the property at 100 College Street on the Heritage Register and designate the property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act for its cultural heritage value. Following research and evaluation, staff have determined that the property meets the criteria in OREG 906 under all three categories of design, associative, and contextual values. Next slide, please. The Banting Institute at 100 College Street has strong associative and historic values. It is associated with and named for Major Sir Charles Banting, who with his colleague Dr. Charles Best made the groundbreaking discovery of insulin as a treatment for diabetes in 1921-2. This historic discovery, which was inscribed on the UNESCO Register in 2013 as one of the most significant medical discoveries of the 20th century, has over the past 100 years improved the quality and life expectancy of millions of people around the world. The discovery also resulted in the first award of the Nobel Prize to a Canadian in 1923. The Institute building has associative value as it was constructed to accommodate the Banting and Best Chair of Medical Research, which was created following the discovery of insulin and the receipt of the Nobel Prize. It was funded by the province, recognizing the significance of medical research, as well as providing dedicated accommodation for U of T Faculty of Medicine departments. Banting and Best served as co-directors of the Chair of Medical Research, and both continued their research at the Institute. Next, please. The building has further associative value as it was designed by Darling and Pearson, considered to be one of Toronto's preeminent architectural firms. And they were the architects of many of the university's landmark buildings, as well as the Toronto General Hospital, opposite on the south side of College Street. Next, please. The building has design and physical value as it is constructed in the Georgian Revival style, which the university administration had mandated since 1920 that all new buildings along College and St. George Streets be Georgian in character to establish a consistent style and character to the public face of the institution. The building has further design value as it is a fine representative of the U of T professional faculty and research building typology, which was designed in the Georgian Revival style and characteristically set back from the street with a landscape setting and paved forecourt. Next, please. Located on the north side of College Street, on the southeast quadrant of a block framing Queen's Park and the Ontario Legislative Building, the Banting Institute has contextual value as it defines and maintains the character of the area known as Toronto's Discovery District. The Discovery District is a unique part of Toronto that is characterized by a high concentration of hospitals, faculty buildings, and research institutes, particularly related to biotechnology. Many of the buildings housing these institutions were constructed in the early 20th century and are characterized by a height of 4 to 7 stories, constructed in the classical Georgian Revival style, with a combination of brick and stone cladding, and often with a landscape setback from College Street. Next, please. The Banting Institute is a contributor to this historic character. With its 5.5-story height and Georgian Revival style evident in its symmetrical composition and brick and stone cladding with classical details, which reinforce its role within the Discovery District enclave. The dignified but unostentatious styling of this scholarly research building is indicative of the historical role it has played in the development of the University of Toronto as a center of outstanding research and the Discovery District as the primary location for healthcare innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Beth. So we have a speaker today, I understand, from Castles. Sydney, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Is it Lisick? Do we have a speaker?
Hi, Sandra. This is Nahom from the clerk's office. So Signet has, I've allowed for audio connection. They just need to connect their mic to be able to speak.
Okay.
If you would like to just give them a moment.
Sure. Thank you very much.
It appears that the speaker has connected their mic, and I've unmuted them.
Okay.
If they'd like to say a few words.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you pronounce it
excellent.
for me?
Yes, Signa Leask. Thank you.
Leask, okay.
Thank you. I will be brief. As you will have seen, there's correspondence that's been submitted by myself as well as some correspondence from ERA Architects, and I won't repeat all of that, but just wanted to, I guess, speak to our request to defer this matter. One of the things I did note is in the letter, over 50% of the St. George campus is listed or designated already, with another building that's going to be designated actually later today in this agenda with the university's full support. The university is a successful steward of these heritage properties and has been very successful in sensitive reuse and adaptation of these properties. However, that also means that there's very few sites available for large, scale institutional redevelopment, with only a handful of these sites. And 100 College is included in one of these sites that was identified for where large-scale institutional development could occur. It has been a development site since at least 1997 and is in the first for secondary plan. It's also the site of phase 2 of the Swartz Reisman Innovation Center, a very important development for the university, the city, and the broader region, and phase 1 having been approved earlier this year. As part of a new secondary plan for this area, ERA did undertake an evaluation of this and all other properties on the campus and confirmed its opinion that it did not meet the 906 criteria, which is again confirmed in the correspondence before you. I'll just point out one point, for example, all of the association in terms of insulin discovery, which, while very notable, was not associated with this building, which was constructed afterwards. So we appreciate city staff have a different opinion, and the university is aware of that. And as a result of this difference in opinion, to facilitate this initiative, which is also proposing to provide increased open space and public amenity for the community, the university and city agreed to participate in a series of workshops to try and find creative solutions that would accomplish all these goals. And these workshops are ongoing.
Somebody else is speaking.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Signa. Is it Mary? Somebody's speaking.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, somebody just suddenly appeared.
My apologies. I'm not sure if my headphone speaker. Yeah, so I just, with respect to the workshops, the university and city have been participating in workshops to try and, meet all of the many goals of the city, university, and the community, and these are ongoing. And so the university was quite surprised at the timing of this coming forward and is simply asking that it be deferred so these workshops can continue. There is no development application before the city at this time because it was waiting for the outcome of these workshops and this cooperative work that is being done. And so I would suggest that there's no risk in delaying this decision until such time that there is an actual application. So I'll thank you for your consideration of this request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions of Signa, please? So I can hear somebody on their phone or on a speaker phone. Who is that?
Madam Chair, I think it's Councillor Layton here. I think is Yasmina because hers is the only other mic lit up.
Oh, okay. It sounded like a man, but
there,
anyway.
She's muted herself now. Perfect.
Yay. Okay, so back to thanks, Councillor. Are there any questions for Signa?
Yes. My question is simply, yes, my question is simply, is the university prepared to confirm that they will not demolish the building in the meantime?
Oh, absolutely. The university would not demolish without having agreement and cooperation on the renewed development plan with the city. No, the university would not demolish.
Are there other questions of Cigna? Alex? No? Okay, I do have one. I'm just wondering, if the building were designated, then you would have clarity on the heritage attributes, would want to be retained, and so that when the new building, the proposal is being drawn up, working with city staff, wouldn't that give you a clearer idea of how to proceed? I mean, we have the buildings across the road, the old Toronto General building, the what was formerly the Children's Hospital building, that has been integrated so well within the modern development. I'm just wondering if this, I'm just not sure what deferral would gain. That's what I don't understand.
Thank you. That's a good question. I think in this case, one of the key issues, well, there's a few key issues. One is, of course, that the university and the city are not in agreement in terms of its heritage value and whether there are any attributes to be conserved. But regardless of the difference of opinion, trying to work together to meet all of the goals. And some of that is balancing different things like the secondary open space and mid-block connections and public amenity that the community want, which can't be achieved with the sort of retention that you're suggesting. So it's really trying to work through all of these different things, as well as the programming for the Innovation Center, its incubator space. It makes balancing all of these things very difficult.
Okay.
And that's why, it needs the flexibility to work through all of these things and all the competing goals, frankly. That is the process that's being undertaken as part of the workshop.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions of Cigna? If not, I will say thank you, Cigna.
Thank you.
We'll take it from there. Okay, now we can ask questions of staff. And I can see no one at the moment. Yasmina, can you, it's full screen at the moment. Can you reduce the size there? Hello. Hello, everybody again. Are there questions of staff? Alex?
Yes, maybe slightly off the to the former church building at the corner, because I can see it coming up for problems.
Is everyone able to hear Alex? Because no. I was no. Alex, can you turn off your video? That'll give you some more bandwidth for your audio.
Okay. Okay, my question was regarding the former church building at the corner to the east. Has staff given any thought to what might be done to ensure that it could be treated appropriately regarding this new development? Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mary. Because the church is not part of the development site, it is on the Heritage Register. So we haven't considered it specifically relative to discussions that are ongoing. And I just want to say those discussions, while U of T has disclosed its thoughts and plans in the letter and has the ability to speak to it, all of our discussions about the development have been pre-application. And so I want to remind myself and staff and let you know that we cannot give specifics from a staff perspective on any discussions that we've had relative to the phase 2 development. So if so the church is not a part of the phase 2 development, and it is on the register. And so we haven't given it thought as a part of these related issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Yes.
Yes,
Bob.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
It's Robert.
Yep. And I see you.
The university is talking about discussions that have been ongoing on about phase 2 and are reluctant to accept designation of this building, the Banting Institute. Hasn't this issue come up in those discussions with the city to date?
I can speak to discussions around the potential designation of the building, not the phase 2 development application. As I said, those are pre-application conversations. But yes, we have been in discussion about, firstly, all of the identified resources on the campus that we will be bringing forward as part of the new secondary plan. As sites have moved forward across the campus for redevelopment, we've had to move some of what we were doing as a larger list out so that they stand alone as individuals for consideration of developments that are likely to come before the secondary plan has been in place. Last August, so a year ago, we shared our statement of significance with the university, along with a few other properties that at the time we were in conversation about the value. We did not receive any comments on this particular statement. So it has been with the university for a year. And then a letter, which I can speak to, did go out in the end of May to the university, indicating that restating the city's position, that designation was what our intentions were. And we did indicate that we would be designating, we would be bringing forward this report. We said soon, that was back in May. So this is the soonest we could get it on the agenda with all of our COVID and researching restrictions. So yes, the values of that building have been discussed for a significant amount of time.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara?
Actually, Mary addressed my question.
Okay, are there other questions? Okay, can I have somebody make a motion? Or actually, are we going to discuss this amongst each other first? Sorry. Any comments to each other? If there are no further questions for staff. Barbara?
I would move the recommendation.
Okay, if there's no other questions, all in favor? Okay, so I see Jeff, Matthew, Alex, Counselor? Okay, Kim, Paul, Robert,
yes.
Barbara, and me. So I believe it is carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next item is
no, just a moment, Sandra. Sorry, I don't think the vote is complete.
What's
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you call Councillor Layton, or if anyone is opposed to the matter.
Councillor Layton was called, and I'm called. I called Councillor Layton, myself, Alex, Matthew, Jeff, Kim, Barbara, and Robert. I called you, and Paul. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep, so it's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. And Ellen, I take it Paul accordingly never got on. Is that correct?
Sandra, they're involved in the meeting, but they're not sitting on the board today. That's not what I understood.
They're the board. One of has it represents the Etobicoke community.
I think we should probably email each other. Okay.
Okie dokie. Okay. So we'll get the next item started. It's 16.7. Inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Alterations to a heritage property, authority to enter into heritage easement agreement at 3 Mutual Street and 98, 100, 102, and 104 Queen Street East, which is Ward 13. We do have speakers, and which staff person is presenting, please?
That would be me. It's Liz.
Okay, Liz, shoot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. My name is Liz McFarland. Great. I'm the heritage planner assigned to research and evaluate the subject properties at 90 to 104 Queen Street East and 3 Mutual Street. Just waiting for presentation. So Yasmina, that's Guy's portion of the presentation. If you could just back it up to part A.
It's Guy here.
The
That's the applicant's presentation. Ours was the PowerPoint. This is the one that the applicant submitted. So yours won't be in that half.
That's right. There we go. Next, please, Yasmina. Great, thank you. So beginning at the northeast corner of Queen and Mutual Street, the properties at 90 to 104 Queen Street East and 3 Mutual Street form part of a group of low-rise buildings on the north side of Queen East that continues east toward Jarvis. Along with the rest of the 3-story brick commercial row at 106 to 114 Queen East, which are already included on the Heritage Register, this block represents one of the few remaining intact collections of mixed-use residential, commercial, and industrial typologies, employing a variety of architectural styles in the neighborhood. Following research and evaluation, it's been determined that the subject properties meet Ontario Regulation 906, the criteria prescribed for municipal designation under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act for their design, associative, and contextual value. Next slide, please. Thank you. The landmark heritage Richard Bigley building at 98 Queen Street East, at the right slide and at the left-hand side of the right slide, was completed in 1889 and the City of Toronto's inaugural Heritage Register listing in 1973. The adjacent 3 brick-clad 3-story buildings at 100 to 104 Queen Street East comprise part of a longer row of 8 buildings now known as Musson Terrace, and all of those were completed together by John C. Musson in 1886 to 87. The property at 3 Mutual Street in the slide to the left, and which is physically connected to the Bigley building at 98 Queen Street East at a 90-degree angle, is also in the Heritage Register and was subsequently built for Bigley in 1901 as additional warehouse space for his burgeoning business that operated on this block since 1875. The collection provides a consistent stretch of late Victorian era buildings valued for its importance in defining and maintaining the late 19th century character of the area. The properties at 90 to 104 Queen Street East and 3 Mutual Street contribute contextually to the historic residential and commercial character of the area and are physically, visually, and historically setting. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm missing a slide. That's okay. Can we go back one, please? So if we look at the right slide, we can see the entire row of 8 properties comprising Musson Terrace. As I mentioned, the 5 eastmost ones are already on the Heritage Register. Together, they're valued as part of an intact collection of historic buildings representing an entire surviving block of the early subdivision and development of Queen Street East. It's recommended that City Council state its intention to designate the properties at 98 to 104 Queen Street East and 3 Mutual Street under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and in accordance with the statements of significance attached as attachments 6, 7, and 8 to the August 7th, 2020 report from the Senior Manager, Heritage Planning, City Planning Division. And now I believe my Heritage Planning colleague, Guy Zimmerman, will give a brief overview of the current development plan being proposed for this site. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Guy?
Oh, good morning, everyone. Yasmina, could you go to the 9th slide? I've got a number of slides, but the applicant has quite a few too, and I don't think I have to go into them. One more. That's the one. Oh, that's the one. This is an excellent slide to give an overview of the kind of conservation concerns that I had, and I think have been successfully addressed. So the part of it was an adjacency within the site itself to fill in this corner in harmony with the massing of the existing buildings that Liz has described to the east. And so you can see that there's an alignment of the cornice and a sympathetic approach to the solid devoid of the second and third stories. In addition to that is to try and retain a sense of the massing of the Bigley building in light of the new development. And you can see how the party walls are maintained or actually probably reconstructed in some cases to maintain that sense. Yasmina, if you could go back to slide number 5, which was it had a top and a bottom view showing the context. That one, yeah. So as well as the adjacency relationships within the site, the top elevation is looking across the street. So again, responding to those, the sort of solid devoid of those on the scale of the construction, that was another concern and something that we were trying to address. Otherwise, the applicant has a presentation that goes over some of the context and describes the project in a little more detail, but that pretty much describes what we were looking to negotiate and maintain in the as I say, the adjacency within the development site itself and the immediate context of Queen Street East. So I'll pass it over to, I'm not sure who with the Heritage Consultants is presenting today. But yeah,
is it Mike McClellan?
No.
No.
I'm not sure. All right. Thank you. I'm here for questions.
I have 2 names before me, Michael and Evan Manning.
Yeah. I wasn't told which of those would be presenting.
Okay, but I guess it's Nahom. Do we have speakers?
Hi, Sandra.
Yes.
Michael is on the line. He's
Super.
Unmuted now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. I was muted there for a while. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to the Heritage staff who played a strong role in working with this particular application, and we value their assistance. Could I have the next slide, please? So just for understanding the site a little bit better, the taller big building is called the Bigley Building. It used to be actually where Eb Zeidler had his offices. And it's an L-shaped building, so it's on Queen Street, but it also snakes around an L and becomes a presence on Mutual Street as well. It takes both sides of a corner building, 90 to 94 Queen Street East, which is an interesting building. It's a very low-scale building in not great condition, and it's surrounded by smaller shed buildings. The building in the green here is 104 Queen Street East,
when we first looked at this site, only the Bigley building, only 98 Queen was a listed or designated building. We actually promoted the sense that 100 to 104 should be recognized, very significant part of a terrace of buildings. And I think that just came to you maybe at your last preservation board meeting, that those buildings would be, I think, listed as the category. I'm not positive. Next image, please. So that's the corner building with its sheds. It's roughly the same age as or similar age to the other buildings on the block. Next image. This is the Bigley building. It has two very large eyebrow windows on the side wall, which are part of the work that Eb Zeidler did when he was in the building, and those will be left, and those will be visible. Next image, please. And these are these other, this part of this terrace, and it's very, very interesting grouping. And I think the two slides on the right-hand side show looking under the awnings, and you can sort of see that the original lidded glass is still there in those shop fronts. So there'll be something very easy to document, record, and replicate. Next image. So in the overall, this is a site where there's a huge amount of development occurring. There's in orange on this image, you can see 60 Queen Street East, which is a very interesting site. I know very little about this actual proposal, but it's proposed to build a 57-story building there. The building 66 or 88, sorry, in the blue shows a large block development, Dalhousie and Queen, which will have 4 towers, 51, 28, 27 stories under construction. Then there's 129, which is the yellow building, which is 11 stories just complete, and the green in the front is a 39-story proposal. So there's a lot of immediate development context. All the more important to understand the streetscape and its character. And our development is proposed to be a, it says on this image, but I can't read it, 38-story building. Next image. This is the property that's being built directly adjacent to the development site. This is the whole block development, and this is the southern building. And you can see it has a 5-story podium. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, pretty much 6 stories on the Queen Street edge in response to the other buildings within the neighborhood. So you can see in the next slide, you can see a view of the building that's being proposed that's directly in front of you. And into the left-hand side, you see that new podium of the building being proposed, the Rue Pontarini building on the larger Dalhousie block. And you can see that it has a 5-story podium. We're sticking with our 3-story podium. And you can see the Bigley building right in the center there. Next image. So a lot of discussion went around between HPS staff and ourselves about the context of this immediate block. And so in this image shows the north, on the top part of the photograph, it shows the buildings that are across the street. They're on the south side of Queen Street. And then our project proposed on the north side of Queen Street. And there was a real push to make a solid, fairly solid street wall to fill in the corner as Guy described, and to restore the Bigley building and its adjacent terrace. Next image. And here again, it's the L shape of the Bigley building coming out onto Mutual Street, and as these buildings are included into the block, there's some rebuilding. So, for example, the Zeidler arched windows that you can see would be accessible through a terrace on the top of the corner building, but they would probably be rebuilt rather than retained in place. Next image. And I think this is just the last image, which is the laneway view on the north side of the property, showing a portion of the Wrigley buildings being retained, but a large piece of it is actually being reconstructed. It's on the laneway, and we had to, within that position, accommodate loading and parking egress and ingress. I think those are all the slides I have, but I'm here to answer any questions, and I thank you all for the positive staff report.
Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, so I just received a message, so Evan will only speak. Okay, so do we have questions for Michael, please?
I have a question.
Yes, is that Robert or Jeff?
Robert.
Robert, go ahead.
Michael, would you show us the ground floor plan?
I'm not sure, Evan. I'm not sure. I don't think we sent it in. But
Excuse me, Mike. I've got that on my slides.
Okay, great.
I threw in a bunch of stuff. So if Yasmina could go back to mine towards the end, I've got four plans in case we needed them.
Super, thank you.
I must say, as a comment, it is quite ridiculous to be showing an elevation with only the lower floors of the 34-story building showing on the elevation. But anyway, let's have a look at the ground floor plan. That's the roof plan.
That's the roof plan.
Michael, I'm interested in understanding the integrity of the retail space at grade, given that this is an important row of commercial buildings, retail commercial buildings along the street. I guess we have 4 existing frontages and then a new infill. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what are we left with now in terms of the retail?
Well, Robert, I'd say that the retail plan hasn't really been sorted out. You could give some direction related to demising walls, but the real push would be what's economically viable retail uses in this location. And I don't think this plan indicates the potential demising of the shop fronts.
Well, demising is one thing, but the depth is another. It seems to me that the only reasonable way that you would do it is the way it's shown in this plan, which is not really acceptable as a way of bringing back 4 existing and 1 new. The only one that seems to be viable is one on the corner, the new one.
Well, there's certainly shops of different scales within this neighborhood.
Yeah, okay.
Are there other questions for Michael? Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
And can we now go to questions for staff, please? Yasmina, can we minimize it again so that I can see everyone? Thank you. So do we have questions for Guy?
I have one question.
Sure.
Do you have an elevation that shows the full height of the tower relative to the street frontage?
I do, if I can perform a little trick here. I realized that I didn't find it in any of the images in the report, but I have it on my phone. And if you put me to full screen,
I can't do that. I can't control that.
No, you can't. He means
if you toggle so that I'm the key frame, it'll make that full screen. I apologize, Bob, that I would typically put full elevations in. That's the rendering. Is that just really tiny on your screen?
Well, I can see something. Yeah, it's not very good.
As an elevation or the built form implication?
That I mean, I think we deserve better than that. If we're going to make judgments about this building, I mean, fundamentally, the question is this row of three and one 4-story building, is it visually strong enough to support that tower on top and retain its integrity as a row? In my opinion, it's not. I think there are a number of planning issues that, but I guess I'm not prepared to get into that, and it's not appropriate that I should. But it does seem to me that this site is really not big enough for a tower, and it's being squeezed. And the setbacks from the neighbouring properties seem to be inadequate to meet the city standards. But okay, I guess we've got what we can get on elevation. Thank you.
Rob,
I apologize for that oversight.
No, Guy, you could actually forward that to Yasmina and she could share it up on the screen. Because we're all connected that way.
Oh, so I just send it as an email to
email attachment, and if you just give us a minute, Yasmina can open her email, save the image to her computer, and then share it with all of you, or both those images.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Yeah, just I'm cognizant of Robert not really having what he wanted from us.
Right. I'm just wondering, are there any other questions in the meantime? Okay, we'll just wait then.
So Yasmina, the one that came up was your Gmail account. Is that? I hope that works.
Yasmina?
Yasmina's on her. She's on her city account, Guy.
Okay, well, why don't we just drop that idea? Let's continue. We've got a long meeting here.
If you want, if it's important to you, Robert, we the chair could hold it down, and when we're ready to share it, we can come back to it.
Well, it's not that important. I think I've got as much information as I need. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions?
Just as a comment, I think we whenever we're looking at this stuff, we should have that kind of information available to us as part of the
I agree,
package.
sir. That is typically one of the standard elevations I would have. It was an oversight on my part. I apologize.
Okay, are there other questions? Guy? Okay, can we talk amongst ourselves? Is there discussion between the board?
Well, I think from the comments I've already made, it's obvious what I think about this development. I think it's to think about the integrity of these this row of buildings, which is quite a remarkable row, kind of bookended by the Bigley building. I think there's too much building on top of it for it to have any afterlife that's nothing more than a facade of the street. I think it's quite unfortunate, but it's so typical of what we seem to be destined for in Toronto. So I won't support it, but I assume it will follow the normal course. And I say that reluctantly.
Okay. Do any of the rest of you have comments? Okay, yes. Oh, there we go. Is this the slide that you would have liked, Robert?
No, it's got
No, it's not. It's not the one with the elevations that Guy was trying to show us on his phone.
Yeah, well, I think I've seen enough.
Okay. Yasmina, can you just make it smaller, please? Minimize it, please. Okay. So there are no comments from the board to each other. Yes, Barbara?
I actually agree with Robert's observation. I think this building is way too heavy, particularly in context of the other developments that were shown to us in the slides. I mean, the density here, and we've been showing the pedestrian level and some bird's eye towards it, but I do think the building itself, which I guess is a fait accompli, is really very too dense, and these building facades do get lost in the development.
Hello, Sandra. I'd like to make a comment too. It's Kim.
Yes, Kim, please.
Yeah, I would third those comments by Barbara and Robert. Again, it kind of points to the fact of coming into these things so far into the game that it's difficult to make any meaningful kind of objections to it. I was wondering if there were was this project reviewed by the design review panel, and were there comments from there that would be available to us?
Guy?
No, it didn't go to the design review panel.
Okay, thank you.
I just while I have the mic, I'd just like to say the focus of our review tends to be the ground level, and we don't really have control over the scale of the building. We look at resolving adjacencies and the sort of pedestrian level, step back, things like that. So the massing, as it relates to the urban context at that scale, isn't something that we have control over.
I think that's, I mean, I understand that position, and I realize that it's kind of a zoning issue where certain groups of people can only talk about certain parts of the project, but it seems to me some of the things that we've been talking about in the past is about having a more integrated review, that actually it would be possible as part of the heritage work to actually talk about the overall kind of project rather than being limited to this, the facades of the existing buildings. But understand that that's sort of a limitation of the process at this stage. Thank you.
Yep, that's why we had the working group. Because this is a serious issue for us. Are there any other comments? Okay, can I have a motion? Okay, let me make the motion, and then how many people are for?
What is your motion?
The motion is to accept the staff report, and so you have a choice of adopting it or not adopting it. So I know and you're fading out again, so I am going to list names. Okay, so let me
Sandra,
start
if
with.
I may, would you,
Yep.
Sandra, sorry, if I may, if you read out each name and wait till the person responds.
What I was going
yes
to do.
Or,
yeah, that's what
yeah,
I was
thank
just
you.
about to do. So, Elizabeth, are you voting adopt or not adopt?
I think she's left the meeting.
Oh. Well, then her opinion doesn't count. Okay. What time? Oh, yeah, she probably has. Sorry. Okay.
I'm in favor.
You are in favor?
Yes, I'm in favor reluctantly because I don't see the point in not being in favor, frankly.
Okay. Jeff?
Not in favor.
Okay. So that's Robert?
Not in favor.
Barbara?
In favor, but reluctantly.
Okay. Paul?
Not in favor.
Not. Matthew?
In favor.
Mike?
In favor.
Okay. Alex?
In favor with reservations.
Okay, and I'd say in favor with reservations. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor. And we have 1, 2, 3 not in favor. And so it carries. Okay, and so we now make it to. Yes.
Sandra, I was confused. Was your motion approve with reservations, or was it approve the staff recommendations? Because those are two different things.
No, the motion is to adopt the report. And so the question we have always is, are you in agreement? Yes or no?
But I heard people saying they agreed with reservations.
Well, that's the same as saying yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
I believe that means yes, unless somebody feels otherwise.
My acceptance of the motion, although I said reservations, it is a yes.
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 Thank you. I just thought that needed to be clarified.
Yeah, it's a yes. So it is 12:20, I believe. Looking at one of my 9 devices here, it's 12:19. We have 2 items left. We have PB 16.8, which is the Front Street in Sherburne, and then 16.9, which is St. George Street. Ellen, do we have to vote to carry on past 12:30?
Yes, if someone could move a motion to extend through the lunch recess in order to complete the agenda.
Okay, I would move that we continue past the lunch recess in order to complete the last 2 items on this agenda. I shall name names again. I feel we should. Kim?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Jeff?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Alex,
In favor?
Matthew,
In favor.
and Councillor Layton.
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So now we are going to PB 16.8, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to heritage properties, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement 176-178 Front Street East and 33 Sherburne Street. Staff presenter. Yes. Hello, who is presenting on behalf of staff?
Hi, hello, Alex Corey here. I'll be co-presenting with Paul Maka.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yasmina, could you jump to the next slide, please? Located, and sorry, just to introduce myself, Alex Corey, Senior Heritage Planner on the Policy and Research team. And I'll be presenting on the inclusion of the two properties on the Heritage Register before passing it over to my colleague, Paul Maka, who will review the application. Located on the block bound by Sherburne Street, King Street East, Princess Street, and Front Street East, the properties at 33 Sherburne Street and 176 to 178 Front Street East contain two early to mid 20th century vernacular commercial buildings. The subject site also includes a service station, which is not being recommended for inclusion on the Heritage Register. Next slide, please. This block is one of the original 10 blocks of the town of York, and these two properties comprise part of the important collection of buildings that reflects the period of industrialization within the original 10 blocks, as well as the larger neighborhood. Next slide, please. 33 Sherburne Street and 176 to 178 Front Street East are located within the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Heritage Conservation District, currently under appeal, and for which an order directing revisions to the plan was issued by the LPAT last month. Both buildings are identified as contributing within the district's plan and are part of the commercial warehouse building type. Next slide, please. This slide is just showing you on the left the building permit drawing for 33 Sherburne from 1918, and on the right is the permit drawing for 178 Front Street East from 1941. The property at 33 Sherburne Street has cultural heritage value as a representative example of an early 20th century vernacular commercial building constructed to provide office space for related manufacturing uses. The Whitfield building was constructed in 1918 for the John Whitfield Machinery Company, which operated a factory on the present-day site of the service station to the south of the subject building, and is a unique example of a building designed to provide office space for related manufacturing uses. The Whitfield building retains physical features that are both reflective of its utilitarian purposes while being reminiscent of early 20th century storefront buildings, including the brick piers, which vertically articulate its principal west facade, its two-story street wall, and the window openings, which are designed at a pedestrian height and scale. Next slide, please. The property at 178 Front Street East has contextual value as it supports the historic context of the St. Lawrence neighborhood, and in particular, the original 10 blocks of the town of York, which evolved from their planned town context in the early 1800s to a manufacturing and industrial district in the latter half of the 19th century and which carried through the 20th century. The Perlman and Goldberg building was constructed as a warehouse facility for the Perlman and Goldman Company, which traded in hides, wools, and furs, and replaced an earlier warehouse building that served a similar purpose. The building served as a warehouse for the Perlman and Goldberg Company through the 1950s, after which it was sold to Samuel Harris, who ran his fabric and textiles business out of the building until the company was sold in 1993. With its location on the north side of Front Street East between Sherburne Street and Princess Street, the Perlman and Goldberg building is part of an important block that transitions from the industrial character of Front Street East to the Main Street character of King Street East. I'll now pass the presentation over to my colleague Paul Maka to provide an overview of the proposed redevelopment.
Thank you.
So thank you, Alex. Again, through you, Chair, my name is Paul Macca, and I'm the Heritage Planner assigned to this application. And I'll give you a very brief introduction to the development portion of the staff report. Yasmina, can I get the next slide? The proposal is to construct a 38-story mixed-use building on this development site. Portions of the Whitfield building and the Perlman and Goldberg building will be incorporated into the development, and the property will be conserved. On the left-hand side of the slide, it's before you is the west elevation of the proposed. This Main Street side. A large portion of the north elevation of this building that fronts onto the laneway will also be retained in place. It's quite visible from Sherburne Street. The application will also see extensive restoration work to this building. On the right side of the screen is the development's south elevation. This contains the Perlman and Goldberg building. The primary elevation of this building will also be retained in situ. Its window openings on the ground floor will be modified to allow access into the lobby of the new residential building. Next slide, please. Now these slides show some renderings of the proposed development. The image on the left is looking south on Sherburne Street, and the image on the right is looking northeast towards the proposed development. We worked very hard during the application process to conserve the buildings as independently significant properties and within the context of the council-approved Heritage Conservation District. This included looking at the step backs above the heritage buildings and the relationship between the buildings and the heritage buildings in the larger neighborhood. So with this, I'm going to conclude my introductory remarks, and I understand the applicant's heritage consultant is here to give you a more fulsome presentation on the development.
Thank you very much, Paul. So according to my list, we have Jude Trucy and Imad Gattas. Is that correct? Are you speaking? I can hear noise. Michael McClelland. Is somebody speaking? Because I hear little voices.
Hello, this is Nahum from the clerk's office.
Hi,
Jude has
Nahum.
been granted audio privileges. They'll just need to connect their audio and they'll be able to speak.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, loud
Okay.
and clear.
Okay, great. So I'll introduce myself. Hello, everyone from the board. My name is Imad Gattas. I'm a heritage consultant with GBCA Architects. We are the heritage consultants on this application. And I'm going to run through a few visuals to illustrate the proposed alterations on the site. So I'm just going to wait for the presentation to go up. I guess this is taken care of by the clerk, right?
That is correct. And you'll have 5 minutes once it goes up.
Yeah, I hope everyone getting hungry close is not going to have any impact on the discussions, but I'll try my best to keep it below 5 minutes. So.
That's really important.
Yeah. I suppose I'm down to 4 minutes now.
No, it's not until it starts. Yes. Are you having a problem with this? Thanks.
Hey, David.
Sandra, it's Liz McFarland here. I had a text from Yasmina saying that her screen is stuck.
Oh, no. Imad, can you describe it?
Sure, not a
No,
problem.
no. Let's just hold on a second. Liz, do you think she's going to be able to? Is it just frozen to reboot?
I'm just doing that now.
Okay.
It's not sure. I'm going to text her that now. She seems like it's a bit of a panic situation. There are many exclamation marks.
Okay.
So here,
Okay,
I'll
let's give her a
I'll just check in with her and update you.
Sandra, I'm very happy to start explaining this, and as the presentation comes up, I can continue with it. I don't think it's gonna make a big difference, but okay. So I want you, I guess, to picture yourselves at the northeast corner of Sherburne Street and Front Street, and as the pictures were shown by both Paul Macker and Alex Corey, the site includes right now 2 low-rise industrial buildings that are contributing to the St. Lawrence HCD and a gas station. And immediately adjacent, there's a number of mid-rise and tall buildings. And if you've been into this area, it's an evolving context of tall buildings with many developments that are either proposed, approved, or under construction. So at the site per se, if you look on the west side and the south side, there's 2 developments that are currently under construction as we speak. There we go. All right, so you can, next slide. So this is what I was explaining about. This was a slide that was present. If we can come back to the first slide, please. So this was a slide that was presented at a community consultation meeting back in September that illustrates the developments in the vicinity that are either proposed, approved, or completed. And then the ones that are immediately west or south of the site are the ones that are in construction. So they're 26 and 29 stories respectively. Next. So this is where we are right now. This is the composition of the site with the 2 low-rise industrial buildings. To the east and to the north are taller buildings. The one to the north is a 15-story residential building that was built in 2016, and it incorporates the facade of the National Hotel. That's an 1870s building that's designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And the subject buildings of interest are the ones that are illustrated at right. So next slide. These are 70s photographs with the current conditions. Alex did a job already of explaining their heritage value. They're quite modest industrial buildings that when they were built, but they have been able to be rehabilitated in the current times for commercial uses. And some of the alterations that have happened is that on the 33 Sherburne on the left side, it's been painted, the windows were changed, and the entryway has been changed to a larger opening. And for the building on the right, the 178 Front Street, there were some alterations to the ground level openings, which are shown in the 70s photographs and in the 2020 photograph. And the windows were changed, and they've also added a mechanical penthouse on the rooftop. Next slide. So for the proposed change is a new 37-story plus a mechanical penthouse at the site that responds to the immediate site to the north and east and to the emergent context of tall buildings. And it comprises of 3 parts of the building. So the first one is the lower podium that includes the portions of the retained building that are going to be rehabilitated for new commercial uses. And the corner building has a contemporary design to it to link those 2 buildings and to respond to their height. Then there's a glazed reveal on top, over which there is a 7-story middle podium that relates to the building to the east and to the building to the north, above which there is a glass reveal and then the tower component that's located closer to the intersection. And as I was stating, the existing buildings are shown at the base, and they're going to be rehabilitated as part of the base building. Next slide. So close up along Sherburne Street, you see the before and proposed after. We're going to propose to, it's going to be rehabilitated with some restoration work to the masonry by removing the paint, taking the windows out and putting new windows based on archival documentation. The portions being retained is the Sherburne Street facade and 18 meters, which is pretty much the massing of the heritage building along Abbey Lane to the north. And you can notice that the podium above the base building is clear of massing above the building. So it's clearly, it's closer to the intersection as opposed to above the heritage building. Next slide. This one along Front Street, we're retaining the front facade and portions of the sidewalls. This one's is a bit challenging because in its current condition, it's very close to the property line, and because of its industrial use, it doesn't engage very well with the sidewalk. So to rehabilitate it appropriately, we're proposing to alter the 3 of the ground level openings. So it's illustrated on the picture at left. We're going to open this up with new glazing, clean the masonry, and then bring it back to its materials. Notice above the facade, there's a glaze reveal. This is about 5 meters pushed back from the facade. Next slide. Ground floor plan and how the commercial and residential portions relate. So it's more commercial along Sherburne and up to the corner, and along Front Street it's residential, and highlighted in yellow are the portions being retained, which are the most visible portions and the ones that that ensure that the 3-dimensional quality of the buildings are understood when viewed from these streets. Next slide. And that's my last slide. It's the proposed elevations and context. So the base is shown on the lower level, the lower level, and then you see where the tower portion is located in relation to the site. So the intent is that the lower levels are more prominently viewed, and that the upper levels, even though they're going to be viewed, there's reveals and masking considerations to express as much as possible the 2 to 3 story character of the intersection. And on that note, I thank you for listening to me. I'm here with the applicant, Jude Tersini, if you have any questions. And I also thank the planning staff for providing a positive report. And I know that during the site plan stage, there's going to be further discussions with staff to provide more details into the base building and the corner building as it combines those 2 buildings at the base. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay. Paul, yes?
Yes. Is there parking involved?
There is underground parking involved. Yes, and it's
under the heritage buildings.
Yes.
And are the heritage buildings being reconstructed or?
No. So 433 Sherburne, we're retaining the Sherburne facade in about 18 meters of the north wall, which faces Abbey Lane. So there's going to be a retention scheme to retain that in situ. And for the front building, we're retaining the front facade and portions of the sidewalls. I believe it's about 3 to 4 meters of the sidewalls we're retaining, enough so that we retain the street wall character, but also understood them as being 3-dimensional, even though we're retaining portions of them.
And as a matter of interest, what's the floor plate of the tower? How many square meters?
The size of the floor plates?
Yes.
Well, they are, I suppose, under the tall building guidelines, they should be within 750 square meters. So, yeah, that's what we can't go above that, right? So.
And is that the 6 stories on the podium? Is that it's 750 in the tower? You said, and what's the square meters on the podium? 6 stories.
The middle podium?
Yeah.
Geez, I don't know the numbers by on top of my head. They seem to be larger than 750 because they're not part of the tower component. Maybe Jude wants to elaborate on that, but
it's how many units in the building?
I don't know. Does that have a heritage consideration, how many units there are?
Well, I just want to have an idea of, you know, where do you go into the tower? Where do people live there, or is that retail in that 4 meter, 3 meter restored podium or restored building? Is that...
Oh, for the base building.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the base building, the Sherburne portion is going to be commercial, and it's a double-heighted space. Sorry, no, there's commercial on the ground and the second floor, and there's individual floors. And for the Sherburne for the Front Street property, this is where the vestibule for the residential lobby is entered. So that's at the ground level, and the upper level, the second floor, is amenities for the condominium.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I can't see any of you because it's at maximum, so yell out or forever hold your peace. Okay, well, thank you very much. And we will go on to the staff questions. Hello, everyone. Again, I can see you. Do we have questions of Alex and Paul? There are no questions? Okay, well, once, twice gone. So thanks, Alex and Paul. So now discussion amongst ourselves. Are there any comments, Jeff?
No, I seem to be a somewhat better proposal.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think it's a better proposal. They're putting the height over towards the intersection and away from the heritage.
Barbara?
I have a general comment. I think it's the sort of the same one with many proposals we see, which is the height and density of the building. I would say 176 to 178 front is poorly served by this development. It basically appears to be a vestige of a building left with a lot of window alterations on the front. I'm not quite sure what else you can do with it. 33 Sherburne is somewhat better served within this development because of the sidewall being saved, et cetera. And it although it's towered over by the building, I think the photos that were shown in the overall development with the other high-rise buildings, this poor little building really isn't going to have much of a street presence either, outside of the development with what's going on in the streetscape. That would be my comment.
Hi, Sandra. I'd like to make a general comment as well.
Yes.
The comment that, you know, it's made a lot of times is really the facadism that the actual floor plates of these buildings seem to have completely vanished, and they take up the role, the heritage buildings take up the role of becoming the front door so that the real retail space at the corner can survive without having to deal with a lot of servicing with the residential tower. So kind of a typical response to not really retaining the actual use of these buildings, but just keeping their skins on the street.
Okay.
It's a typical response.
Yep. Any other comments?
Well, Bob.
Robert, yep.
Robert, yes. I pretty much agree with Kim on this one, and I don't think there's anything worth adding. It's become the norm, and these poor little buildings become little toys in the game. I think they're not. It's not real.
It's true. It seems such a waste of time. It's like somebody's designing a kind of something based on what is there, and then by the time you get the building, there's really nothing of the there. It's just a makey up kind of thing. So 3 meters of heritage, big deal.
And not great heritage either.
I think what's really sad, there's the parking lot to the west that's, you know, a street level parking lot. Why these poor little guys are being developed, and the parking lot will, you know, will be one of the few parking lots left. And what's more interesting about that one is that it used to be Cook's Church, which in 1930 was the site of a huge Orange Order rally to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Orange Order's presence. And it's just, to me, it's all just, it's kind of lost. But I don't
like
know.
the Orange Order.
It clashes with, I think what we're seeing repeatedly is the overall city plan expectations for these areas and little heritage buildings, and they don't really seem to mix very well. So either you don't say them and say there's no way to do it properly. It always comes down to a philosophical question of what's supposed to be the predominant feature, the heritage building, and in these cases they're two very modest little buildings, or the new building. They don't blend well. Anyways, is there any further discussion? So can I have a motion?
So what would be, is what we're saying in this case is that the heritage is not great heritage. It's not, maybe it wasn't important to keep it. Is that what people are saying? And just
well, I don't
bulldoze it.
know. I mean, it was.
Like,
I think it's part of the new and their historic buildings, but I don't know.
It's a big selling point for the developer. Look at how what they're doing for our history. But you know, it's not really a building. It's a facade. It's a theater set.
If you remember the 1972 photograph that we were shown in the staff report, the building on the corner, which is now a gas station, was substantial, and the buildings that we are concerned with today were tertiary within the framework of the streetscape. Though they're the ones that survived, but they're not. To say that they're exemplary of a certain period, I think they're not really. They were second-rate buildings within a larger framework, but we've lost that larger framework, so they become kind of the last crumbs of heritage.
If they were second rate then, what are they now?
Yeah.
With respect, I think the wording was vernacular. It wasn't that they were second rate. They were vernacular. They were ordinary, right?
Yeah.
The part of the street, they're best seen as part of a continuous streetscape where the vernacular becomes something of real substance. So in that respect, I don't feel what we've done here is that bad, because they weren't that important in the first place.
But don't we deserve something better than they're not too bad?
If we were only talking about the ground floor, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I think this comes back to the working group report. We need to have a big discussion about this whole issue, which rather than take up the time on an individual development application.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to add another comment. For me, one of the key aspects So this is one of the 10 original blocks.
Jimmy's
Somehow
breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying that it seems to me unfortunate. I mean, the key aspect for me was that this is one of the 10 original blocks of the town of York, and when I kind of remind myself of that, it does seem to be a kind of sad ending or sad beginning, new beginning for the block. I mean, it's interesting points that were made about the actual primary buildings that were on the block that are lost, and that we have these crumbs. I love the word crumbs to deal with, to somehow guide this overall very dense development. So it seems like it should be a more overall a recognition of the 10 original blocks and what would distinguish them as the 10 original blocks, rather than keeping these spins of these, as Robert has said, tertiary buildings.
So I move the staff report.
Okay. Let me read off your names again. We'll start with the counselor this time. What do you think, counselor?
I'll be supporting the staff recommendations.
Okay. Matthew?
I'll be in favor.
Paul?
In favor.
Alex?
Support.
Okay. Elizabeth? Sorry. Kim?
In favor.
Jeff?
Yes.
Robert?
Oh, I suppose, yes.
You're killing me with your enthusiasm, Robert. Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I'll say yes, so it's carried.
We have herd immunity.
Okay, we're on to the last item. Yahoo.
Let's do it.
Yes, 117 St. George, item number 16 point, I just want to make sure I've got it right, or 16.9. Intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, alterations to designated heritage properties, an authority to enter into heritage easement agreements, 117 St. George Street. And who is presenting on behalf of staff?
Hi there, that will be me.
Hi, Larissa, welcome. It's the first
Thank
time
you.
I think
It is.
Okay. We almost had you on the board.
You did.
You've gone to a better place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just wait for Yasmina. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yasmina, if you can just advance, to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Larissa Kotsarachaki. I'm an assistant heritage planner with the city, and I'll be presenting on the designation report for 117 St. George Street, which includes the entrance address at 119 St. George Street, before passing it on to my colleague Dan, who will speak to the development application. Prior to beginning my presentation, I'd like to quickly flag that a paragraph on the Alexander MacArthur House's associated value was repeated twice in error in the report on pages 61 and 62, so I apologize for that. The property index map on the screen shows the location of the subject property on the east side of St. George Street between BLOOR Street West and Hoskin Avenue. Next slide, please. Perfect. The property known as Woodsworth College contains a collection of 1-, 2-, and 3-story institutional buildings owned by the University of Toronto, including the Alexander MacArthur House, which was constructed in 1891-2, the former drill hall, which dates to 1939, the former officers' quarters, which dates to 1947, the Margaret Fletcher House, which was built sometime between 1924 and 1947, and the 1990 to 1992 KPMB and Barton Myers Associates Inc. infill and adaptive reuse project. The Woodsworth College property was identified as a character-defining resource in the Heritage Impact Assessment for the University of Toronto secondary plan, and the Alexander MacArthur House was listed on the city's original heritage inventory on the 20th of June, 1973. Please advance to the next slide, Yasmina. Thank you. Following research and evaluation according to Ontario Regulation 906, it has been determined that the property at 117 St. George Street has design and physical, historical and associative, and contextual value. With features such as its rusticated Credit Valley stone masonry, ornamental stone carvings of acanthus foliage, pediments with fish scale shingles, and arched corbel tables, the Alexander MacArthur House is valued as a representative example of the Richardsonian Romanesque style with the addition of select Queen Anne Revival style elements. The Alexander MacArthur House also has historical and associative value for its association with the wealthy lumber merchant for whom it was originally built, as well as for its association with the Toronto contingent of the Canadian Officers Training Corps, or the COTC, and the career of the well-known Toronto architect David Brashtick. Please advance to the next slide. Thank you. The former drill hall at the southeast corner of the property, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, is valued as a representative example of the large drill hall building type, which was popularized in Canada during the latter half of the 19th century and into World War II. Common characteristics of this building type were double height interior volumes, longitudinal forms, and continuous roof lines. The former drill hall also has historical and associative value because of its relationship to the COTC. Next slide, please. Thank you. The 1990 to 1992 KPMB and Barton Myers Associates Inc. infill and adaptive reuse project is valued as a representative example of the architectural expression of two of Toronto's most prolific architectural firms who specialize in urban revitalization through the rehabilitation of existing buildings, appropriate infill, and the creation of well-designed urban spaces. Next slide, please. Thank you. The property at 117 St. George Street also has contextual value as it is physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings, and it defines and maintains the character of the North Campus area on St. George Street between Bloor Street West and Hoskin Avenue, which is largely comprised of 2- and 3-story 19th century houses and later post-World War II institutional buildings. I'll now pass it over to my colleague Dan to speak about the development application.
Thank you, Larissa.
Thank you.
Unmuting.
Hi, Dan.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
I'm having some serious technical difficulties today. My home internet service actually went down. I'm actually on my cell phone. So if by any chance the connection becomes unintelligible, my supervisor, Ann Fisher, will continue the presentation.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, good afternoon. Once again, Dan Barlow of Heritage Preservation Services. Thank you, Larissa, for giving a really thorough rundown of the location of the project site and its heritage value. The project before you altered the designated heritage at 117 St. George, also to give authority to enter into a heritage project
Dan,
site.
we're losing you.
Maybe I'll stop my video.
Stop the video and just do audio. Yeah.
And then you can hear me? Yeah, I'll stop the video and okay, good, great. Yeah, I'm introducing the I will provide a presentation delineating the conservation strategy for the properties. The redevelopment of the site will consist of a 6-story infill project that will contain classrooms, student event spaces, a library, and office uses, and constitutes the conservation strategy connection with a zoning bylaw amendment application. Here on this slide, we see the site location, and the footprint of the proposed infill project is at the southeast and rear portion of the site, and you can see where it says new construction. At the St. George frontage, the project entirely retains the Alexander MacArthur House. There's no changes proposed to the house form building on St. George. It also will retain the west elevation of the Canadian Officers Training Corps addition. That's the west elevation on St. George. The project would retain all the courtyard facing elevations of the 1992 KPMG and Barton Myers addition. And you saw the photo from Larissa's presentation, so that would not be altered. Next slide, please. The altered Kruger Hall and Margaret Fletcher House would be removed to accommodate construction of the new academic building. Next slide, please. Here we see at the top, the north elevation project, where it's approximately 23 meters step back from the St. George frontage is apparent. The east or rear elevation is the lower diagram, and the project massing is also set back at the south of the site to preserve the existing rear courtyard. Next slide, please. Looking southeast at the St. George frontage, the development is designed with setback from the St. George street frontage to lend visual prominence to the existing scale and built form of the street. Staff is supportive of the application and overall believes the design represents good heritage planning. This concludes my introduction to the project. I believe the applicant is here to provide a more detailed description of the conservation strategy. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So we will move to Graham Stewart and Mike Bloor from Bousfields if they are here and ready.
Sandra, are you checking in to see if we have any public speakers on this
Yes,
matter?
that's what I just said. It's supposedly Graham Stewart from ERA and Mike Bloor from Bousfields, and that's asked if they're here.
Yes, thank you. So Graham has been granted audio. They now have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. It appears that they're currently muted, now unmuted, now muted.
Okay.
Graham, if you don't mind, I'm going to, okay, it looks like you're unmuted if you'd like to say a few words.
Excellent. Okay, thanks everyone. And there's Graham Stewart from ERA Architects and Mike from Bousfields is here to answer questions if they come up. So thanks for the excellent presentation, Larissa and Dan. You've done most of what I'm about to show, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. And there was a presentation we sent to the clerk, if that could be put up.
Yeah, Yasmina.
While that's waiting to get set up, I can start by providing a bit of background if that's useful.
Okay.
Understanding this is the last presentation before lunch.
Yeah.
Everyone's been very patient. This is, this is a remarkable site in the university and in the city. As noted, we were partners with the university and the city in looking at the secondary plan and acknowledged the site is one of heritage importance. So as with going into that, the university took that, quite seriously in thinking of the potential to add more program space to this site. And there was a design search put on, and our group, among others, were part of that design search and found an excellent partner in Congat's Architects. And part of the brief, during the review for our design partner was how do we preserve what's special about this site and bring in new faculties. Criminology is moving to this site. Woodsworth has some of the smallest actual GFA space on campus, and this is providing some needed expansion of student space and learning space and event space and library space, as well as criminology. So when the slides go up, we can walk you through, the series of test fits and how we came to this envelope. And as Dan mentioned, the things that we're really pleased about and how this turned out is the courtyard is left completely intact, as well as all of the assets along St. George. I think it's worth mentioning, because it'll definitely be part of the discussion, is that when we first engaged in this project, the drill hall was not part of the listing. We worked with the city discussing it, noting, is this a place for a building? How would we incorporate one? Looked at several options that would say, can we build on top of it? Can we maintain have a first floor height that's quite tall to retain some of the pieces, and looked at those options with the city. What was ultimately decided was the removal of it. A lot of it had to do with fitting the program space within a profile that wouldn't shadow on the courtyard and could be adequately set back from St. George. And when we get to the slides, there really is a piece. There's been it's a remarkable site that's gone through several transformations. I think the Barton Meyer KPMB scheme is brilliant and really kind of a Toronto vernacular about how you add density while maintaining a street frontage. Here we are. And the goal with this project is to be an evolution to that. How do you take, three house forms, add a courtyard program to the back, and allow it to continue to evolve? So with this first site, skipping over the first few slides, a lot of this has also been covered by your colleagues. Really the idea that the main program here is criminology moving to this location, and a series of new program area. This is actually, if you go back to the last slide, I think it's important to look at the actual lot is what's in red. Which is interesting, because you think of it as one block containing those three houses. Those houses function similar to the way that 117 does, and that it really does frame that courtyard with that bar building and that kind of college quadrangle vernacular that's put into the back. But they are separate addresses. They're part of the complex, but they're not being touched by this proposal. Nor is 117, other than internal connections. So next slide. This is just looking at the footprint of where the development is proposed to go. The Margaret Fletcher house was a house that was highly modified from the exterior. There were some interior remnants of that house that was put into, as meeting rooms and such, is proposed to be removed, largely to do with, there is an underground portion to this project as part of the program, and the drill hall as well. Next slide. This is just looking at the adjacent context. There's some larger buildings under construction or proposed along St. George, but this was looking at how does the university, in following the framework established in the draft secondary plan, add density in a really subtle way, and that was the brief. And so this is the results looking at that. Next slide. And this is just the evolution of the house forms. The last one's a terrible photograph, but this is where it is merged in the 1992 KPMB scheme is there. And Bruce Kurobara was actually on the U of T design review committee, which was very engaged in this project and supportive. Next slide.
Constructed or?
No, so 433 Sherburne, we're retaining the Sherburne facade in about 18 meters of the north wall, which faces Abbey Lane. So there's going to be a retention scheme to retain that in situ. And for the front building, we're retaining the front facade and portions of the side walls.
Actually, Yasmina, if you are controlling it, if you want to go through the next three quite quickly, this is just showing the context, which people have now been shown and are aware of. The main piece really being this, brilliant courtyard. And this is a diagram done by Congetz when they actually did the design proposal. And this is sort of what won them the job in a sense. It's looking at the fact that these buildings and the KPMB Forum has created this brilliant courtyard. I also did my graduation in that courtyard and know how special that space is. And to say, let's carry that up. And if we're adding massing, we have two key features. One is we want to limit any shadow impacts into that courtyard, and we want to create a flow of movement that better connects the laneway to the courtyard and brings the courtyard experience up through the site. So that is what is, I believe, been achieved in this project. Next slide. So these are some of those interior spaces. This is the view of that massing from the courtyard. There were many versions of this that we reviewed with the city and internally in the U of T design panel to get it right. We'll review the shadow impacts in a moment. And these are that sort of circular stairway, which is expressed on the south side that does take you up into these different spaces and connects directly to the courtyard. You'll also see in the elevation of the courtyard that the entire existing 1992 courtyard is maintained with construction behind. Next slide. And this is a new event space that would overlook the courtyard and be kind of a marquee space with some outdoor space that would actually go towards St. George. Next slide. And so here's the current elevation or the current view here. And one of the goals of the project is to really improve this laneway. Students use it all the time to cut through. How do we actually make it a real space? So if you go to the next slide, it's the proposal. So here is where you see the maintaining that original piece with the KPMB modification on St. George, and then the new proposal really activating that laneway. And when we get to the plan, you'll see that there actually is a large piece of glazing that provides a direct visual connection into the interior courtyard and through the building, where right now it really is a sort of a side yard condition rather in a service lane condition rather than a real elevation. Next slide. This is just some of the materials and the glazing and the other piece to sort of look at the influences of the colonnade and that type of thing. Next slide, please. So this is in yellow is the urban design guidelines developed by the university with the city as part of the new secondary plan that's still still being developed with the city, but using this as sort of a working space. So the yellow, what was sort of put in there as an envelope, and worked really hard with the team to take less space to get it lower. It used to be taller to fit it in, and was through some clever design work, it's been pushed down. Next slide. Same here, and push towards that laneway. And if we get to the next two slides, this is where we get to the shadow impact, which is really one of the driving pieces. So this is the view from the courtyard. Next slide, for shadow impact. So there's no governing requirement about performance of the courtyard in terms of access to light. This was done by the university just to ensure that its brilliant asset of this courtyard was maintained. So what we're looking at here, so these aren't the typical dates. These are more scholastic dates. This is really what the university was interested in. So this would be, let's say, the opening of the semester. What is it like when students first arrive? So 2 p.m. on September 5th. And you can see the net new shadows in blue. So there are some net new shadows, but they've been dramatically reduced to what was there originally with previous iterations of the scheme. Next slide. And then this next one is graduation day. So this is when ceremonies happen for architects, it's ring ceremonies and that type of thing. And so, in fact, there's no net new shadows for that space during that part of the day. And the next slide, which I believe is the last. This is just an interior, oh, sorry, this one, yes, thanks. This is a ground floor plan. So you can see in gray is what's being maintained, so that full colonnade. It will be retained in place, and there'll be some structural gymnastics to keep it there during construction, but it will be maintained in situ and integral, and then kept with the project. And then you can see this open to below here on the south side that will be bringing light into the basement levels, but also glazing that cuts right through, so you can see the interior of that colonnade and into the courtyard. And then the red stair there is the beginning of that winding stair that brings you up all through the project, which is that continuation of the colonnade. And that is the end of the presentation. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Graham? Just speak up. Yasmina, could you please minimize it again? Thank you. Any questions for Graham? Yes, Alex?
Yes, I'm wondering if there's any thought given to commemorating the drill hall in some way, either architecturally or maybe through an art installation. My memory of the site is basically from Devonshire Place, when I used to look to the west and see the drill hall. And I'm wondering whether there could be something designed, or maybe there is. I saw something about a mini Kruger. Maybe there is some commemoration of just the overall shape and the truss structure in the roof, which I think would be sort of interesting. Is that a possibility somewhere, either art or structurally?
That's a great comment. So the Mini Kruger was really, we actualizing this grand student space that does go up and is multi-story as the kind of continuation of that. I think I saw the Mini Kruger as well. I think that was sort of a naming convention, but really the replacement is this much larger volume. In discussions with the city, and now that the proposal is the designation, including the drill hall, that absolutely there will be a commemoration will be part of what gets sorted out during the next phase during the conservation plan. And so we'll look forward to conversations with with the team and with the city about how best to do that.
Thank you. And it's delightful to see a building which isn't in the double digits height-wise.
It is a pleasure to work on institutional projects with a great client. So
as far as the drill hall goes, if I can comment, I go through that laneway all the time, and I've been involved with the military quite a bit. And I've got to say, it's never dawned on me that it was a drill hall because it's been so decontextualized. I think some of your interpretation can happen with the COTC. I mean, where U of T has most importantly commemorated the participation of students in faculty during the Great Wars is Soldiers Tower and the Arches, and the Phoenix, of course, is commemorated right across from the west side of the Parliament buildings. I just think when I look at the hall, I think it's good that some comment is made because it'll connect it to the COTC building, and it'll have to be interpreted as well. When I think of what we lost, like the university armories, we still have the Fort York armories. I sort of paused and then I went, oh, come on, I like this new design.
I agree with those comments, and that it's a highly modified exterior is highly modified, in the subsequent renovations, and built in the late 30s. But there's about 4 eras of modification, including in the interior. So, those are the facts on the ground. Also balancing the site with how do we add new programs. So we did, we debated it quite a bit, but thought this is on balance the best place for site evolution. But I think there's an exciting opportunity for that broader narrative. Those photographs of people doing drills in front campus, et cetera, and to make more of tying into that broader narrative from Soldiers Tower to the broader campus, et cetera. And there will absolutely be opportunities for that in how we approach that.
Okay. Sorry, Jeff, were you going to speak?
Yes, if you go back to the previous slide, the ground plan, I guess it was. And yes, I'm just wondering about, this is all pedestrian through here?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And what happens here?
I can't see where you're pointing to.
Oh, sorry. I'm doing a good job on pointing it on my screen. Beside on the right-hand side of the student commons, which seems to go into a red area. I didn't understand what's happening there.
The red area is actually the stair. That's that stair that goes up and down. So you can see that we're from the laneway. There's the main entrance with the red arrow. So that brings you on access to the colonnade, so that you can go from there and then walk. You know, get direct access to the courtyard and the colonnade that kind of ties the program together. And then you can go downstairs, you know, from the south, or upstairs from the north. So if you're coming south from the colonnade, you can then take that stair up and wind through the other programs, and that's a double height space from that student commons. If that's clear.
Sure, that looks good. Yeah.
I mean, another piece about it too is that, you know, it's such a brilliant space, but the courtyard is quite buried unless you know how to sneak in. And it's a bit of a mess when you actually look at the plan currently. So this really does open it up, makes it more flexible, brings the colonnade really to as part of this. So it's a much cleaner plan, and we're pretty excited about the potential here.
I have a question, Robert.
Yep.
I mean, I think that the planning and the sectional rearrangement is brilliant. I think the only question I have is in the exterior finishing. What seemed to me so clever about the KPMB Barton Myers edition was the connection with materials from the existing houses and so on, without imitating them, without reproducing them, attempting to reproduce them. They still, with it in a, I guess, postmodern way, picked up very well on that. This is quite different. It seems to be not in the same family architecturally, architectural finishes. Could you comment on the thinking about that?
No, I think that's a great question, Robert, and something that, you know, the full team really thought carefully about. So there will be, on the interiors, there will be a finishing package that'll really tie it together. And I don't know if someone's able to go to the elevation or to the rendering to look at this. So it's a glazed building, so it would be, you know, a curtain wall building. The idea being that the color and tone of it works. Right, here we are. So you know, the next step, really going from schematic design to a more detailed level of design, is how do we maintain this effect? I think they're going for a real indoor-outdoor effect with a screen, and picking up on those coppers and the rich color palette of the existing ensemble, and balancing. You know, a heavy opaque building with a light building, and I think that at night and with different lighting conditions, it'll kind of glow and could be you know, very, very interesting. There was a look at, do we do a heavier material, and it did seem to really weigh down the project, and, you know, making sure that the large, you know, Richardson Romanesque mansion blocks on St. George are the heavy parts of this building, but not just having sort of, you know, a light blue glazing thing like everything else that just has no character. So I after quite a bit of design iterations from the design team, this is what, and also quite a lot of commentary from the University of Toronto's design review panel, everyone was pretty pleased with this final configuration.
And what is the main material of the
It would be a curtain wall system with part of this is the mullions, and part of this would be like a frit type piece.
You mentioned copper. Is that?
I don't believe there'd be any. I also. I don't want to misspeak for my design architect colleagues. It would be picking up on the tones and colors. I don't believe there's any copper itself integrated into the curtain wall.
Okay.
Kind of like, you know, Muntz metal and other more, you know, handles and those types of things to sort of bring that tone together.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's a fantastic solution. Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Graham, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, discussion amongst us. Comments, questions? Staff? Okay, can I get somebody to make a motion to adopt the staff report?
I'm prepared to do that, yes.
Okay, Robert. I will call out your names yet again. You there? I'm not sure that he is. Okay, Paul?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Matthew?
In favor.
Yeah, Alex?
In favor.
And I'm in favor. Kim?
Yes, in favor.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Barbara?
Yes.
It's carried. Okay, well, we ended on a high note.
The good wine. We kept the good wine till last.
Yeah, we kept the best one to the last. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I'll make
So
a motion
moved.
to adjourn. Does anyone oppose that?
No.
Then we're done. Thank
Not
you
on your
so
life.
much. And thank you, Ellen, and thank you, staff, and thank you, Nahom. I really need COVID to be finished.
See you in September.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, well done, Tamara.
Yes, very well done.
Yeah, excellent.
That was a wonderful tribute. Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah, that was great.
About 3 to 4 meters of the sidewalls we're retaining, enough so that we retained the street wall character, but also understood them as being three-dimensional, even though we're retaining portions of them.
And as a matter of interest, what's the floor plate of the tower? How many square meters?
The size of the floor plates?
Yes.
Well, they are, I suppose, under the tall building guidelines, they should be within 750 square meters. So, yeah, that's what we can't go above that, right? So.
And is that the 6 stories on the podium? Is that it's 750 in the tower you said, and what's the square meters on the podium? 6 stories.
The middle podium?
Yeah.
Geez, I don't know the numbers by on top of my head. They seem to be larger than 750 because they're not part of the tower component. Maybe Jude wants to elaborate on that, but
it's how many units in the building?
I don't know. Does that have a heritage consideration? How many units there are?
Well, I just want to have an idea of, where do you go into the tower? Where do people live there, or is that retail in that 4 meter, 3 meter restored podium or restored building? Is that?
Oh, for the base building.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the base building, the Sherburne portion is going to be commercial, and it's a double-heighted space. Sorry, no, there's commercial on the ground and the second floor, and there's individual floors. And for the for the Front Street property, this is where the vestibule for the residential lobby is entered. So that's at the ground level, and the upper level, the second floor, is the amenities for the condominium.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I can't see any of you because it's at maximum size, so yell out or forever hold your peace. Okay, well, thank you very much. And we will go on to the staff questions. Hello, everyone. Again, I can see you. Do we have questions of Alex and Paul? There are no questions? Okay, well, once, twice gone. So thank you, Alex and Paul. So now discussion amongst ourselves. Are there any comments, Jeff?
No, I seem to be a somewhat better proposal.
I'm sorry?
I said, I think it's a better proposal. They're putting the height over towards the intersection and away from the heritage.
Barbara?
I have a general comment. I think it's the sort of the same one with many proposals we see, which is the height and density of the building. I would say 176 to 178 front is poorly served by this development. It basically appears to be a vestige of a building left with a lot of window alterations on the front. I'm not quite sure what else you can do with it. 33 Sherburne is somewhat better served within this development because of the sidewall being saved, et cetera. And it although